Welcome. I am your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOT, and joined as always by my guy, Cody Saftic. You guys can go over there and follow him on Twitter at CJ Saftic. And we are here propping you up for the big UFC 265 card, headlined by the interim heavyweight title, actually, between Cyril Gane and Derek Lewis. Francis Ngannou going over there and playing in the stand, according to Derek Lewis. But I can't wait to see who pulls out the victory here so that we can get a proper matchup for Francis Ngannou, hopefully either by the end of this year or early next year. But Cody, what's going on, my man? How's it been going?
Yeah, good, man. Celebrated my 30th birthday. So
happy belated.
Yeah, and the first one, like 20 didn't matter. 19 and 20, you're like happy to do it. But this is the first one where you like take a step back and be like, oh man, I wouldn't say midlife crisis, but we're coming up on it. But I don't want to make it all that far anyways. So yeah. Things have been good. Last week's card was an absolute shit show. Bellator thankfully saved the day. But this week we get to come back to a proper offering. Good fights, loaded top to bottom. And you just look at the featured prelim is Rafael Fiziev versus Bobby Green. Sign me up. So I think that there's a lot of good spots here. The one thing, you smell that? You smell that on your end?
I do.
The shit in the room might be those Texas judges, but the judging all over has kind of been shitting in the pie recently for us. So knock on wood, everything goes smooth. The plays that we like go accordingly, and the judges get it right.
Yeah, can you really bank on that though? Let's just be a little bit honest. Let's be on the safe side in this spot as well. I am coming up on my 30th birthday as well in October, so I'm hoping that I don't feel like you. Hopefully, I'm a little bit more excited, but we'll see how it goes down. You were gonna add?
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's one thing that we can take away, my sleep schedule's been whack because Olympic boxing, it's all like 1:30 in the morning, and the wrestling's like 6 o'clock in the morning. So, but the judging has been exceptionally good, like they're getting the right calls. And this is Olympic judging we're talking about.
You got 5 judges, right?
Yeah, honestly, it's a great way of doing it. It's a great system. I've had a couple close ones this morning. I had this girl, she lost a point. 3 rounds, right? Wins the first 2 rounds, loses a point in the third. So it's a 29-28. So they score it, a draw. But then one person has to advance. So they just ask the judges, they're like, well, who really won this fight? And they're like, well, the girl that won 2 of the 3 rounds won this fight. So she advances. Whereas the UFC would be like, push. I don't know, it'd be something stupid, right? So all I'm saying is if they can get it right, surely Texas on this godforsaken Saturday, give it to me, baby.
Dude, don't get your hopes up. What are you talking about?
I'm 30. I don't know why I'm still optimistic, right? Skateboarding rubs me the wrong way now, but I'm optimistic the judges get it right.
I feel like right after the stream, you're going to go out to your balcony or your porch and sit on a rocking chair, sip on your tea, and just have your spectacles on or something. That's how you're making 30 sound. God damn it.
Feed the birds.
Yeah, exactly. All right, before we get into the actual show here, we do have a little bit of an announcement in terms of the future of the show, just to keep it a little bit consistent for you guys and make sure you guys have something to look forward to on a week-to-week basis. So obviously, Cody taking up a matchmaking spot over there at Z Promotions, obviously has a ton on his plate as well with his horses and Dogger Pass and everything that he has going on. So I don't want to keep scrounging this guy to make it a weekly thing, obviously. So what we've been planning and what we're going to be doing moving forward now is our guy Cody is going to be joining us for every single pay-per-view episode that we have for propping you up. No set start time for that. We can stay a little bit flexible with that. I'm cool with that. Seems like a lot of people love this 10 a.m. early slot for some reason, so don't even mind that either. So it could either be Thursday night or Friday morning that we're going to have Cody on for the pay-per-view episodes. But for fight night episodes, I'm going to be bringing in my guy here, John Stargary, and you guys may know him from the Club and Sub podcast. One of my favorite dudes on MMA Twitter, probably one of my closest friends as well, I'd say, outside of Z and Newsom, but I definitely do like my guy John here. So John will be joining me for the fight night episodes of Propping You Up. That will be Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be a concrete time that me and John are going to do for fight night weeks or fight weeks where it's a fight night. So John, what's going on, my brother?
Yeah, not a lot. Cody, first of all, congrats on the matchmaking spot. That's fucking awesome.
Thank you.
And then, I'm excited to get into it. I promise when you do have me on that I will not be in this room with a bright sunlight and coming in over my shoulder. I just happen to be working right now. But yeah, I'm excited to do it. Obviously, I love props, and I think me and you get along pretty well. So.
Absolutely. When I was thinking about the short list of people that I actually have good chemistry with, you were definitely one of the guys that came to my mind, which was like, okay, I can definitely lean on this guy. Cody, it seemed like you're going to add something there, brother.
No, I was going to say, luckily for you, I've set the bar extremely mediocre at 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3, right? So as long as you can just keep up the trend at a 2 out of 3, you're going to do just fine, John. I got faith in you, buddy.
For sure.
Appreciate it,
Another
guys.
thing with John is he's a very good dog hunter as well too. You guys are going to get some really good knowledge from him. Just over the last 2 weeks, this guy's hitting Gritzmacher. This guy's hitting fucking Malcolm Gordon. This guy's hitting, who's that other big dog that you have the other week? Holly and Paiva, Darren
Bobby
Elkins.
Green on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He's getting Bobby Green this weekend. If you guys actually want to hear his take on that, make sure you guys check out the Club and Sub podcast. I believe they did it Wednesday night, and he definitely made a good case for Bobby Green on that show. So make sure you guys go check it out. So yeah, John is going to be jumping on the show starting on the fight night shows. I believe the first one will be the week of August 21st. So that's when you guys are going to see him. And then Cody will be back in the saddle for pay-per-view events. Just something that we felt like was the best thing to do for this show and to keep it consistent on a week-to-week basis. John, is there anything you want to say on the way out here, brother?
No, just you can catch me on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern on the Club and Sub podcast, on the Club and Sub podcast YouTube. And yeah, that's it. I'm excited to get into this every week. I'm pumped.
Hell yeah. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter. His handle is right there under his face. MMA Fox. Make sure you guys go follow him. And yeah, again, first episode will be the week of August 21st. John, thanks for taking out a couple minutes here just to introduce yourself to the crowd. And I'll be sure to see you the week of August 21st, my brother. Take it easy.
Sounds good. Take it easy, guys.
All right, Cody. Let's
What's
not
up?
waste any more fucking time, dude. Let's get into this
13,
fucking
baby,
card. Man.
13.
We got 13 fights. I got some juicy props here that I want to get into. First and foremost, we're going to start off with Johnny Munoz Jr. going up against Jamie Simmons. Minus 310 now on Johnny's Munoz. The steam is starting to come in even more. I saw him at minus 270 yesterday. Plus 255 is the return on Johnny Munoz. We got a matchup between two grapplers here, right? One a wrestler, one a jiu-jitsu player, a jiu-jitsu phenom apparently, right? This guy pretty much grew up on the mats here in Johnny Munoz. Jimmy Simmons, on the other hand, I believe he has high school and a college wrestling background. But, you know, it's not really translating the best to MMA in terms of what we see in terms of his potential, right? Comes into the UFC, probably the worst matchup you could possibly have in your UFC debut, going up against a guy like Giga Chikadze, who just knocked his head into the fifth row. But we know that Jamie Simmons requires getting his wrestling going to have success. However, that falls right into the death trap of Johnny Munoz, who wants this fight on the ground. And I'd be surprised to see Jamie Simmons attack that wrestling early in this fight. I feel like he's going to take that wrestling style of a striking approach, which is just, you know, those big winging hooks, blitzing forward and trying to knock your head off. And then eventually later in this fight, try to get into the grappling and the wrestling and trying to control Munoz in the spot. However, I actually think that Munoz has the better gas tank in the spot. I think that Jamie Simmons is going to struggle if he tries to use his wrestling. I think he's going to struggle to keep top control and try to grind this fight out. I believe we'll see Johnny Munoz hit, reversals hit, maybe even a submission off of his back. And even when this fight is on the feet, I feel like Munoz brings a little bit more to the table in terms of versatility of strikes compared to the, again, kind of rudimentary style of striking that we see from Jamie Simmons. So I completely understand the chalk on Johnny Munoz here in terms of the way that I'd look to approach it. I feel like the under is not too bad of a spot. Under 2.5 at minus 135 covers the Jamie Simmons early bomb, and then obviously covers the main prediction that I expect, which is Johnny Munoz by sub. So if you want to look at specific props here, Munoz by submission is currently sitting at plus 175. I don't mind that line at all, considering that's probably his best path to victory. However, there's always that chance that he goes for the ground and pound instead of the sub, and the TKO is a plus 500. So let's just stay safe. Just take the inside the distance, plus 115. I think that's a really good line here, especially for a minus 310 favorite, especially somebody who we expect to go out there and get the finish here. Cody, do you echo my sentiments here, or do you think that Simmons has way more of a shot than that plus 255 indicates?
No, I agree with you. I think that John Munoz is a guy that probably learns very quickly. As you mentioned, he's a jiu-jitsu phenom. He's technically won world titles as a blue belt, purple belt, and brown belt. No real success as a black belt, but that's because he's not really doing competitive jiu-jitsu anymore. He's into MMA. Got his black belt by age 20. So that in itself just shows you, I mean, he's obviously very skilled. When you watch any of the tape of him coming into the UFC, man, can't strike. In wrestling, very lackluster. So coming into a fight with Nate Maness, who obviously you and I are very familiar with, former TKO champ, that's a tough spot for him. But all the same, his striking looked vastly improved. He outstruck Nate Maness. He scored 2 takedowns. He should have won that fight. He got a point deducted from him in the third because of a low blow. Still should have won the fight. And they ended up giving it to Nate Maness. So, I mean, tough spot for him. But all the same, young prospect, loses, go back to the drawing board. Not going to hinder him. Decent enough performance. But what I liked was the development in his striking that we hadn't previously seen on tape. So this is another continuation of that. I think that the striking advantage should go towards Jamie Simmons, but I don't think Munhoz is going to be totally out of his element. And when the fight does hit the ground, and eventually it is going to hit the ground, he should style up on him. So when you look at Johnny Munoz, typically he is a finisher, right? And he's finished the fights on the ground in a bunch of different ways. He's got a rear naked chokes, he's got arm bars, he's got a heel hook, and obviously he likes that ground and pound TKO as well. So once this thing hits the ground, I do see him ending it inside the distance. And if for whatever reason Jamie Simmons did come and clip him, like you said, both of those trend towards that under 2.5 at -135. So that's something that I'm looking at as well. And something that probably wait the hour after the show's done and watch the weigh-ins, because both of them are dropping down to 135. But in Munoz's case, career 35er, took one fight against Nate Maness at 45, but Nate Maness is also a 35er. Simmons, meanwhile, career 45er, mostly fights at 45, fought Giga at 45, and now he's going to have a full camp. He's going to be down a weight class at 35. He could come in looking bigger. He could come looking in fresh. At least, have an eye on it. Might not even make weight. Who knows? All I'm saying is one more thing that you could look at. But I agree with both assessments. The two props that I looked for this one was at under 2.5, and the Jamie Simmons, the fight doesn't go the distance, -135. The Jamie Simmons under 2.5 +100. And Munoz inside the distance +125. Those are all the points that you hit. You don't think it's going to go the distance, so let's hit doesn't go the distance -140. Under 2.5 is even better price at +100. I agree. I don't think it makes that 2.5. And then we both got Munoz. Not 100% sure if it's the submission or the knockout, so let's just take inside the distance at plus money, +125. So same page pretty much on all your points, man.
I love it. I love it. Just a quick comment here. Oh, snap. It's Mikey. What comments do you guys see more YouTuber on Twitter? I would highly suggest coming on over to the YouTube stream. There's definitely way more chatter going on in the comment section there. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Victoria Leonardo welcoming Melissa Gatto to the UFC. We got pretty much a pick 'em actually here. -110 on either side. We've had Victoria Leonardo initially as a +125 dog earlier in fight week, and money has steadily come in, and I wouldn't be surprised if she goes off as the favorite once the fight actually goes down. Melissa Gatto, last fight, I believe 2018 on the regional scene, where she actually Kimura'd Carol Hossa, who's actually doing pretty well in the UFC right now. But I believe that, the product that we're seeing right now with Carol Hossa is much better than what we saw back then when she was going up against Melissa Gatto. Not to mention, to get that type of Kimura where she's the one, getting taken down and then clamping onto that arm is kind of impressive. However, outside of that, it doesn't really seem like she brings much to the table. In terms of her striking, seems like she just has a leg kick. It seems more so that she's just trying to set up an eventual takedown, and she seems a little bit too comfortable in terms of just falling to her back and letting her opponent's control her, which is not a good look. Even though Victoria Leonardo is only a purple belt, I believe that she's sufficient enough on the ground to stay out of any submissions from Melissa Gatto in this spot. And if this fight stays on the feet, I think that Victoria Leonardo has more tools to get it done. I actually think that this could look similar to Victoria Leonardo against Chelsea Hackett to a certain extent. I know Hackett's a striker compared to the grappler here that we have with Melissa Gatto, but I think that we'll see Victoria Leonardo get stronger as the fight goes on, and I believe we're going to see Gatto fade. Lost in a lot of the breakdowns here is that Melissa Gatto actually accepted a USADA suspension even before she made her UFC debut. So probably not the greatest look before coming into the UFC, and you got to believe that we're going to get a deteriorated version of her. And I do think that Victoria Leonardo has all the chops in the world to go out there and make this a tough night. So this is actually one of the first spots I'm going to be looking on the card for a potential round 3 prop, as I do think that Leonardo, like I said, will get stronger as the fight goes on and should have an opportunity to win this fight, either TKO on the feet or a ground and pound here as well. Plus 1475 for Leonardo in round 3. Leonardo by TKO plus 550. I'm going with it. I'm going with Leonardo on this spot. Am I not giving enough justice to Gatto in this spot, or do you like Leonardo here as well?
Yeah, I didn't mind Leonardo when she was plus money because, again, this is a dog or pass type fight. It's 50-50. The only thing that we could go on Gatto is pure speculation. If you look at the tape, it's not exactly very pretty. Yeah, she beat Carl Rosa, who's 3-0 in the UFC now. Carl Rosa's like 6-1 in her last 7 fights, that one loss being to Gatto. That in itself is impressive. But some of that other tape, that City Roca fight, she didn't win that. That wasn't a draw, sorry. That was like...
Yeah, what was that?
She lost all 3 rounds.
How is that a draw?
She got taken down 8 times.
How the fuck is that a draw? That makes no sense.
And you mentioned it. She just has an acceptance on her back. She just lies there. She's not scrambling to get back up. She's looking to exchange grappling. The Carol Rosa fight, Carol Rosa is bombing her with the striking and for whatever reason initiates both takedowns. The second of which lands her into a triangle choke, which sets up the Kimura, and then she has to submit to it. So Again, what have we seen from Gatto? Not enough. Leonardo's very strong. She's someone who trains with Andrea Lee on the regular, and whereas there's definitely holes in her game, she's going to be able to overcome these green fighters or these, look, talk about the layoff, talk about the ring rust, talk about the USADA suspension, talk about the fact that the tape doesn't look good. I agree with you on pretty much all your points. But I'm the kind of guy that kind of leans toward narrative a lot of the time. And then this is my narrative on this one. So she's only 25 years old. A 3-year-long layoff doesn't mean anything. In fact, she would have made a vast amount of improvements over the course of those last 3 years. It's just we haven't been able to see any of it because she hasn't been competing. But routinely, you see this happen with Brazilian fighters in particular, and a lot of the time, women Brazilian fighters. They come over with awful-looking tape or tape that you can't even review. It's non-existent, right? They come to the UFC, they're underdogs, they're not expected to do much, and out the gate, it's like, oh man, they're way stronger than you expected. They're way faster than you remembered. They're way evolved all around. The last time we were watching her fight Carol Rosa, right? She's 21, 22 years old. Now she's 25. It seems like she has been working on her grappling a lot, working on her jiu-jitsu, working on her wrestling. Striking, maybe it's come over a little bit. I would say that Victoria Leonardo is just a mid-level fighter, right? She hasn't shown us any improvements. You mentioned the Chelsea Hackett fight. She got rocked in the Chelsea Hackett fight. You know what I mean? So she was able to come back and win that spot. But against Gatto, I'm not so sure. The last point I want to touch on was you mentioned that you think Gatto is going to gas out and maybe be susceptible to a third-round finish. Entirely possible, my man. I don't know. How do we know that she's going to gas out? How do we know she has cardio issues? The one thing I could go back to is let's talk about that Roca fight where we both agree she lost and we both agree she got, controlled, but cardio didn't look bad. If anything, Roca was completely gassed out.
She looked out of it.
Whoa. It was still getting takedowns, so that's troublesome. That's very troublesome. But in this spot, what's Leonardo going to do? Get the takedowns? Hopefully Gatto, as a 25-year-old fighter who spent the last 3 years training her craft, has been able to get over the hump and make those improvements. So again, dude, all I'm going is off speculation. That's not a great way to go it, but I think the way I would attack this one on a prop standpoint is the over 1.5 minus 180. Not a great price tag, but again, I think that both of them are going to need a round and a half to get going. Either Victoria Leonardo, like you said, does tire her out and TKO her late. You're thinking third round. Okay, well, my over 1.5 is going to hit. If Gatto has her way, she could maybe run through. If she's made that many improvements, she runs right through Leonardo. If she hasn't made any improvements, she still hangs around for that over 1.5. So the minus 180, not a great price tag, but I think that thing hits. But if I was going to do a little sprinkle on anything, I think I'm going the Gatto inside the distance, plus 150. I think that if anything, she's going to have made improvements. The strike will be a little bit better, and at some point, this thing's going to hit the ground. She'll get on top and hopefully snag up a submission. So if I always say one last thing got to say is that you'll know this. You're the man. Carol Rosa's a black belt, isn't she?
I'm not 100% sure, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Like, mainly she's a striker, right? She goes out there and just fucking strikes.
Yeah, and I remember when she fought Laura Procopio, I thought for whatever reason they were both black belts. Even though they're not like high level or anything like that, I thought they were both black belts. But regardless, I feel like Carol Rosa's grappling is pretty solid. And this girl's a listed purple belt. Even now, 3 years off, she's still a listed purple belt, right?
Yeah, but according to her Instagram page, she is a BJJ black belt.
Right, and so Carol Rosa got subbed by this girl who would have been like a fucking blue belt. A 21-year-old blue belt subs her, takes 3 years off. Turns out she's on the GAC, but whatever. She's only 25. She's not over the hill. Now she's coming back. Like, if she just even made some improvements, she's so totally live here. So, as a favorite, didn't like her, but she's being bet down to the underdog. Tempted. But again, the way I go is the over 1.5 to be safe. And if you wanted to get ballsy with it, my opinion was the other side. Gatto inside the distance.
I gotta say, I think referring to steroids as GAC is probably one of my favorite things I've heard in a long time, and I might have to steal that one from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the next fight. A fight that we're actually supposed to get on July 17th. Now we're getting it due to Anderson dos Santos initially testing positive for COVID, and now we're luckily they did reschedule the bout, so the training camps don't go to total waste. We got Munoz Jr coming in at minus 200, Anderson dos Santos at plus 170, relatively the same odds from the last time that they were actually supposed to go down, and my thoughts really haven't changed about this fight. I know Munoz Jr's, wrestler, decent striker, again, kind of rudimentary wrestling type of striker, but has a little bit more tools in his pocket than a guy like Jamie Simmons, in my opinion. Speed, obviously, I do believe he has a bit of a cardio issues when he's getting pushed in his fights. We've definitely seen him slow down in the past, especially in his fight against Cole Smith. Here with Anderson dos Santos, obviously BJJ black belt, has a nasty guillotine, as Martin Day found out last time around, and a lot of his other opponents in his previous fights. But it seems like he's almost accepted the fact that he's never technically going to go out there and beat a guy just trying to technically outstrike them and look for his opening or takedowns. It's on him to go out there and try to create some chaos and try to capitalize on that. And I feel as though he should be able to do that here against Miles Johns if he's able to survive early in this fight. I feel like Miles Johns could absolutely blast his head into orbit with the perfectly timed shot at the beginning of this fight. But I believe that the more that it goes on, I think Anderson dos Santos might put up a little bit more of a fight, and it would cause Miles Johns to kind of get into desperation mode a little bit, right? If we like, it kind of reminds me of Hani Yahya in a sense, where he just goes out there and throws bungalows on the feet because he doesn't care about getting taken down because he knows that's his realm. And I feel like that's the same thing here with Anderson dos Santos, especially later in this fight. Miles Johns could absolutely take him down early in this fight as well and kind of grind him out early. For me, it's more so the later and the deeper this fight goes. If he can't get dos Santos out of there, I think he's going to struggle a little bit later. And again, dos Santos has kind of accepted the fact that he needs to create chaos to have success. And I think that he's going to be able to do that in the third round of this fight. I think he'll be able to survive the early onslaught. He might be down going into that third round, but I feel like he's just going to let it loose in the third round. Miles John might go out there and shoot a desperation takedown, might jump himself into a guillotine of some sort, or even eventually get reversed when he's on the ground. But at minus 200, I'm not completely sold on Miles Johns at this point. I still need to see a little bit more from him. Anderson dos Santos, again, he was at the grasp or the unfortunate circumstance of being 0-2 in his career before going to the Martin Day fight. And we've seen time and time again, or at least over the last several events, where guys are 0-2 in the UFC and then they've notched that victory in the third UFC fight when people are absolutely writing them off. And I believe that's what happened with dos Santos in his last fight. I believe he was a slight underdog in that fight as well. I'm expecting him, again, he's probably going to get wrecked in the first 2 rounds of this fight, but I think he has enough ammo in the tank to go out there and possibly pull off something in the third round. So possible live betting opportunity if that's something that you guys are into. But in terms of props, I like dos Santos here. Possible dos Santos round 3. Where's that? Where are those odds? There we go. Santos round 3 plus 2,000, worth a little bit of a sprinkle in my opinion. And then Santos via sub plus 650, definitely worth a little bit of a shot in my opinion as well. I feel like you're going to give a little bit more credence to Miles Johns here. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, listen, as far as chasing long props, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Plus 2,000, geez, who wouldn't want some of that? Plus 650, like, it's all very tempting, but I got to side with Miles John. That's who I picked the last time, and then what's changed? What's changed is that Anderson dos Santos tested positive for COVID. He's had to probably take a week or two to quarantine, and then now they're rebooking the fight. So I feel like if anything, it plays towards Miles John. I'm not going to flip the pick on that one. Agree with a lot of your assessment, right? Miles John does seem to have suspect cardio. When he was in the Contender Series against Richie Santiago, gassed in the third round, right? Yep. When he was fighting Cole Smith in the UFC, gassed in the third round. The Mario Batista fight, whatever, it's a flying knee, like shit happens.
Yeah.
But to his credit, the Kevin Natividad fight, whereas a lot of people expected him to gas in that third round, he just kept coming after him, right? He ends up knocking him out in the third, and that's a solid performance from him. Keep in mind, for a guy that apparently has cardio issues, he did go 5 rounds with Adrian Yanez in the fight before coming into the UFC. So again, he kind of looked tired of that fight, but he still went 5 rounds, right? So does he have cardio issues potentially? Is it the bright lights of his first Contender Series? Dana's there. The next fight with Cole Smith, UFC debut. He's only 27 years old. He's at a very tough gym, a gym that you got a ton of respect for, and I do feel like he's making some solid improvements out there every time out. So if his cardio eventually carries, he's got a lot of solid skills. As you mentioned, he's a wrestler boxer. His wrestling is not elite, but it's definitely good enough to beat a lot of these guys mid to low level of the division. His boxing, certainly not elite, but again, he's going to be able to get away with it a lot of these mid to lower level guys of the division. The fact that he can mix it up is key because he can dictate where he wants his fight to go down. I wouldn't recommend grappling with dos Santos. I wouldn't. I'd recommend using that wrestling, stuff the shots, keep it standing, out volume from the outside. But if you needed to steal around late, if you needed to grind on this guy against the cage, at least he has the ability to do so. With Anderson dos Santos, it's nothing that it's no disrespect to him, but I'm going to key in on the fact that he's just way too low volume. You look at his debut against Nad Narimani, who, is tough, all right? I got a lot of respect for the guy. Most people probably don't. But former Cage Warriors champion, built like a brick shithouse, strong guy. It's the numbers, man. He gets outstruck 84-46 and gives up the lone takedown, drops a decision. The Andre Ewell fight, well, that one's understandable because Andre Ewell's just super long-limbed. But again, man, 35 significant strikes landed. He did get 2 takedowns, but just did nothing with the 2 takedowns. So he gets outstruck 35-73. Again, this is the second time he's been doubled up. And then this Martin Day fight, it just doesn't really last long enough. He looked good. He looked solid. He was coming forward. He snagged up the guillotine choke. Looked solid. But Martin Day is 0-4 in the UFC and then has since been released. So you do have to take it with a slight big grain of salt. I think in this fight, if Miles John just keeps the fight standing, he's going to outpoint him. Regardless of his own cardio issues, I think that he is shoring it up a bit. And that B, he's made enough improvements, hopefully, to just be able to control 2 of these 3 rounds and then not get finished in the 3rd. So I am going to go with Munoz Jr. I keyed in on that Munoz Jr. by decision at plus 120, but you mentioned this point very briefly, and I will mention it as well. Munoz Jr.'s it's not totally impossible that he gets a knockout, which is plus 300. And the reason I say that is Anderson dos Santos has looked durable in the UFC, but prior to coming to the UFC, if you watch any of his regional show stuff, not all that durable. You know, he had been knocked out by Victor Henry. He got knocked out in the 2nd round by Andrew Whitney. That's Tisha Torres' last boyfriend before she officially switched to the other team.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know.
Look at Cody with the TMZ scoop here.
He's actually fighting tonight. But yeah, I know. But anyways,
what's his name again? Sorry,
Andrew Whitney.
Andrew Whitney. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, he got knocked out by Justin Aldo Silva. That was jungle fights. He got finished in the 1st round by Edward Souza, 55 seconds. So all I'm saying is that yes, Ewell couldn't put him out, but Ewell's not really much of a finisher. Ned Narimani couldn't put him out, but Ned Narimani's not much of a finisher either, and Munoz Jr. falls in the same category. He is not much of a finisher, but he lands solid shots. Richie Santiago had a hell of a chin to take those shots. He also did score a knockdown against Santiago, and then his last fight against Natividad, the fact that it's a 3rd round knockout shows the power is starting to carry. He's starting to get more experience. He's 27. He's now had 3 fights in the UFC. He's starting to get more seasoned. I expect just a better version of him every time out. Whereas Anderson dos Santos, as tough as he may be, he's kind of the same level for me. So again, the 2 props I'm looking at, well, actually just the 1 prop. I think I'm going to end up going with the Johns by decision plus 120, but I've done this before, is I would put $100 on Johns by decision, $100 on Johns by knockout. If Johns wins by decision, I win $20, no big deal. If Johns wins by knockout, sweet, I won $200. Good times. If Johns loses, which I wasn't, not that it's not impossible, but I thought we were both kind of on the same page with Munoz Jr. You bringing up the fact that you think that he'll tire out and it'll be a live spot for dos Santos 3rd certainly gives me cause for concern. I'll wait for the weigh-ins before I make my final decision on that one. But if anything, yeah, I mean, probably just Johns by decision is probably the smarter play, right?
Just a heads up for most people that are looking to watch the wins. The wins are actually going down as we speak since they're in Houston. They do have them a little bit earlier just because of the time zone difference. They should be wrapped up by noon Eastern as well. So apparently somebody already messaged me and said Jose Aldo looks great on the scale. So we'll talk about that a little bit more when we actually get to that matchup. All right, let's get on to the next fight here. We got Manel Kape going up against O'Day Osbourne. And interesting that we just brought up the wins because this is going to be Osbourne's first trip down to 125 pounds. However, it doesn't look like he really carries that much weight. Apparently he came into that Brian Kelleher fight on short notice at like 130 something pounds. He was already ready to go for that fight. So I don't think it'll be a crazy cut for him to get down to this weight class. Seems like a long, lanky guy that seems like he has all the physical capabilities to be a very solid fighter, right? Like it's just about putting it together. However, we still need to see more of this guy, right? He has only 2 fights that have gone the full 15 minutes. He's 1-1 in those spots. Unfortunately, I'm not able to find any tape on it, so I can't really see how he looks going into those later rounds. So it's almost just an assumption that he's going to slow down the later that this fight goes. But this has got to be his toughest test to date. I know he's lost his UFC debut against Brian Kelleher, but Manel Kape, even though on a downswing, and I just talked about it in one of our prior breakdowns, 0-2 in the UFC to start, right? Back against the wall. We know what Manel Kape at his best brings to the table. The guy goes out there and he collects scalps. He goes out there and gets knockouts. He gets people out of there. And I'm expecting to see vintage Manel Kape this weekend. I think he's actually going to reverse his fortunes. I think he's going to come in with a little bit of a fire in his belly, especially with the fact that he has his back against the wall and he could potentially get cut, right? This could be the biggest flop in UFC history, not to mention from somebody that's coming over from another pretty decent organization with as much hype as Manel Kape had. But I think that O'Day Osbourne falls right into the category of guys that can go out there and knock out. The spot that I like in this matchup the most, actually, and I made it my dog of the night play, is the under 2.5 at plus 120. I think there's going to be some violence in this fight from either side. I think O'Day Osbourne could potentially get a finish, but I do think it's going to be on the Manel Kape side to go out there and find that chin of O'Day and eventually get him out of there. I'm not super impressed with O'Day. I think his takedown defense isn't the greatest. Sure, he has a couple subs off of his back, but I'd be very surprised if he's able to pull off a sub here against Manel Kape. And then again, in the striking realm, I like the kind of wildish style of Ode at times, but I do think that Manel Cap will be able to capitalize on that, find the chin, and put his lights out. So, this is one of those prime spots, in my opinion, where the public perception of Manel Cap is kind of low, which is why the line continues to drop. I saw him at like minus 220 earlier in the week. Then he got down to minus 180 last night. Now he's back up to minus 200 this morning, it seems like. So there seems to be some solid love coming in from Manel Cap and actually realizing that this guy has some potential. And, you could make a case that he won the last fight against Matheus Nicolau. I thought that third round was very close. I thought it was like 3 to 3.5 minutes of solid success from Matheus Nicolau, and then slightly more success from Manel Cap, but just not enough time of that success in that third round. And in my opinion, it truly came down to how you scored that third round. But again, very close fight. The Pantoja fight, another fight that I felt like he kind of let slip through his fingers by kind of just being wowed by the big lights and cameras of the UFC scene. But now that he realizes that he's probably never going to fight in the UFC again. If he gets an out this weekend, he's going to come out there with a fire that we haven't seen in his last two fights. And I think he finds the knockout in the spot. So the props I'm looking at, like I said, under 2.5 covers a finish from either side here. But Manel Cap by KO plus 210, not too bad of a spot. He could potentially get a submission as well, in my opinion. Plus 1,200 for Cap by submission, I think is absolutely crazy. But I wouldn't mind just going with the safe route. We're just taking Cap inside the distance, plus 180 to cover both outcomes. But I might have to sprinkle a little bit on that submission prop because I definitely think that's something that he can snatch up here. Am I blowing too much smoke up Manel Cap's ass, or do you think that he actually gets to finish in this spot too?
I'm actually really impressed that you brought up the submission prop side of things because no one else does, and it's totally live. It's totally live in that when you watch him fight in Japan, he's wearing shoes all the time, right? He wears the wrestling shoes. And that's because as much as he is a slick striker, he likes to grapple. He's a BJJ brown belt, and he's very strong, very physical with his takedown games. In the Pantoja fight, right? Look at the takedowns he scores over Pantoja. Like, unbelievable. But with 10 seconds left in the round, what are you doing? Why wouldn't you have done this earlier? Maybe because he doesn't want to grapple with a high-level black belt like Alexander Pantoja. When you look at him versus Matheus Nicolau, it's like, oh, geez, why not want to grapple with Nicolau? Nicolau's trying to grapple you, right? You probably don't want to grapple with this guy as well, BJJ black belt. In the Ode Osbourne fight, like, he is live to use his own grappling and could be very successful with it. So the fact that prop is so big, I agree. Yeah, and I agree with a lot of the points. However, I did end up going with the decision side of things. What I do agree with is that, yeah, the UFC paid a lot of money for this guy. He was a highly touted prospect. When he came over, he hadn't fought in like a year and a half. There was a long layoff between his last fight in Japan against Asakura and his debut in the UFC against Pantoja. So ring rust, debut, bright lights, all those things. He could have won that fight. He's actually a favorite over Alexander Pantoja. Yeah. Who's sick, right? That's how much faith people had in him. And he could have won that fight, but he just stared at him. No activity, bad fight for him, he loses, but it was still relatively close, to be honest with you. And then the fight with Matheus Nicolau, I did score for him. I did think he won that fight. Again, very close. Both of those guys are vastly better than Ode Osbourne. Now, I'd like to see Ode Osbourne at 125. That's neat. I think that he's going to have a really long frame for the division. I think that he's going to be a lot stronger at the division. This is probably the weight class he deserves to be in. We'll see. Once we're done the show, I'll check out the weigh-ins and analyze how good or bad he looks. It doesn't matter. The fact is, it's a better weight class for him. But I can't people are looking to blindly fade Cap. Oh, Cap is crap, right? He's a busted prospect, which is a good one, by the way. I mean, it just works itself out. You're going to not throw any punches. But at the same time, he was a good prospect. They are paying money for him. And like you said, he does realize his back against the wall. People are just looking to blindly fade this guy because he's a busted prospect. But I think that the skill is there, and I think that this is his time to go out there and show it. And you mentioned a lot of guys 0-2. You're right. It's all about styles make fights. We've seen guys 0-3, Bruno Silva. This guy's a write-off, but give him the right matchups. And he's learning a lot in those losses. Well, why is Bruno Silva learning so much in his losses? Because he loses to legit guys, good guys, and gives them a run as well. That's what I think about Kape. He's lost to two good guys, and he gave both of them a run. He's going to be making some improvements. He's going to be feeling better. I think he gets the job. Where I do disagree with you is that I think it goes to decision. Ode Osbourne's never been knocked out. The submission thing does, that intrigues me only because Ode Osbourne has been finished a few times by submission, but he's never been knocked out. I think he's got a pretty good chin. He's definitely comfortable as a striker. If he gets tired later on in the fight, well, then he'd be susceptible to the knockout. But Kape has shown us through two fights, yet his volume isn't actually all that good. So do I expect it to be better here? Yes. Do I think he's got legitimate power? Yeah, he's got legitimate power. but I don't know that he finds the chin and I don't think he knocks him out. So, you know, you got me thinking about it, certainly. But the way that I was going was the fight goes the distance, a minus 125, I believed, covered me even if Kape is crap, right? If he does go out there and shit the bed and doesn't perform well, Ode Osbourne's able to stick to the outside. Ode Osbourne's not knocking him out. I really don't think so. And Ode Osbourne is not submitting him. So if Ode Osbourne wins this fight, I would think it's by decision. And likewise, I think that Kape would win a decision. So we're covering both sides in my mind on minus 125. But that Kape by decision is plus 180. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, he's got the speed advantage. He's got the striking advantage. He's going to have to deal with that length a little bit early. It might take him a round or two to figure out the distance, but he should be landing the better shots. And, of course, why would you want a 2-1 straight money line ticket on a guy if the judges are probably just going to be awful? Like, that's the one problem with Manel's style, is a lot of it's predicated on him knocking you out. So if he doesn't knock you out, it tends to be these close, uneventful rounds for a lot of the time. And then it's up to anybody's interpretation, and I don't want the Texas judges' interpretation getting it wrong. So, yeah, it's a little bit of buyer's beware. I'm not totally as hot on him as I'd like to be, but I do think he gets the victory. I will be playing him, and you know, although we do agree, you're thinking he gets the job done inside the distance. I'm thinking he gets the job done by decision.
Shout out to our guy PayPal My Money DFS saying Ode could possibly gas in the third in his 125-pound division in his 125-pound debut. It's a plus 1125 from Manel Cap in round 3, which isn't too bad. Also, just a quick update in terms of the weigh-ins here. Our guy Joe Todero saying that Osbourne made 125 on the dot and looked good doing so. So let's see how that actually translates into his fight tomorrow night. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got the return of Karolina Kowalkiewicz, who goes off at minus 135, going up against just returned Jessica Penne plus 115. If you guys remember, Jessica Penne took a split decision, I believe, controversial split decision over Lupita Godinez last time around. But you know, you kind of got to blame Godinez for fighting as close as she did in that matchup. I get, you know, she was landing some good shots and landing some good damage, but to continuously get wrapped up and that grappling sequence and those grappling sequences with Jessica Penne is just not a good look. Made that fight way closer than it should have been here. I mean, when you have a minus 260 to minus 285 in Godinez, you want to see a little bit more of a dominant performance per se. But, you know, good on Jessica Penne to make it the fight that she needed it, right? Like, she needed to be in close quarters, even though she's the one that with the reach advantage and should be able to kind of keep fighters at distance. But her striking is just not that good. She's a grappler. She's a very crafty grappler. I remember seeing one of her early submissions in Invicta against one of these Japanese fighters that I was just completely blown away by, just in terms of the way that she was able to set up the triangle. And that's kind of what initially put her on my radar even before she ended up getting onto the Ultimate Fighter. She had some skills, but now she's 38 years old, right? Like, she seems to be slowing down a little bit, although she was able to pick up that sketchy decision against Lupita last time around. I do still think that she's going to be on the decline here. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, on the other hand, a year and a half outside of the cage. Last time around, we saw her get beat to shit by Yan Xiaonan, close to getting actually stopped in that first round as well. I believe she had like her tear duct burst or something like that because Yan Xiaonan landed on the eye pretty significantly. But she's been out of the cage for a year and a half. She's 35 years old. She seems to have the fire to get back inside the cage and, you know, reverse the fortunes of that 0-4 streak that she's currently on. But it's really not that bad, right? Like, she's going up against top contenders, top fighters within that division and coming up short, right? Jessica Andrade, Michelle Waterson is probably the most iffy one there, but we also know that Michelle Waterson has a little bit of an underrated wrestling game, which is she was able to utilize in that matchup. Then we got Alexa Grasso, solid fighter, and then lastly Yan Xiaonan, who, you know, albeit, you know, lost to Carlos Esparza the way that she did, still a very high-level fighter. I do think that we'll see Karolina come back to form here. I do think that she's going to go out there and just piece up Jessica Penne on the feet. I think she'll do what Godinez was supposed to do, which is strike and just disengage from clinch positions, stay away from the grappling, hopefully stuff a takedown or two, as I don't really believe in Jessica Penne's takedown here. And I do think that we'll see Kowalkiewicz, you know, have that classic Kowalkiewicz performance, which is like 100 plus significant strikes landed. You know, I mean, she's going to stick and move. She's spending time with Joanna now over there in Poland. They're apparently teaming up and you know, just trying to get her ready to come back for a UFC return. And I think that we'll see some solid work from her here. I think she, like I said, significant striking advantage. I don't think Jessica Penne is comfortable on the feet at all. And she really needs to clinch and engage in the grappling to have any success. And I think that's not really going to happen. It seems like the public perception is in tune with what I'm saying, considering that the line is starting to widen a little bit, especially as fight week has progressed. Obviously, the most predictable outcome is probably going to be Kowalkiewicz by decision, no matter who you expect to win in this fight, them by decision. But Kowalkiewicz by decision plus 120. But I might have to take a little bit of a sprinkle on Kowalkiewicz by KO at plus 950. I think that line's a little bit wide, especially considering the striking difference here. And I know Kowalkiewicz isn't notoriously a finisher, but I believe that the lack of striking defense and the almost the lostness of Jessica Penne when she's in the striking exchanges could pair well with Karolina Kowalkiewicz, who's more than likely going to be coming back with just a vengeance here. I mean, somebody that wants to come back and just reassert herself back into this 115-pound division and again change the perception of her, which is a fighter that's 0-4 and probably way past her prime. So I think this is a great matchup for her to come back to. I'm going Karolina Kowalkiewicz decision plus 120, but I'm going to have a little bit of action on that KO prop at plus 950. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, man, I got Karolina as well. I mean, the joke that I was making on Twitter earlier this week is that she's lost her last 11 rounds in a row. I mean, she got 30-26 against Jan, but lost all 3 rounds. She lost all 3 rounds against Grasso, all 3 rounds against Michelle Waterson. She lost the single round that she fought against Jessica Andrade, and then she lost the 3rd round against Felice Herrig. So it hasn't been a good stretch. As you mentioned, she's 35 now, year-and-a-half long layoff, hasn't won a fight since the Felice Herrig fight, which is 40 months, I think, to the day. So it's been, my biggest question is just like, does she want to do it? And you mentioned that she seems rejuvenated and, she wants to right the ship and get back in the win column, but she hasn't really seen herself in a long time. She hasn't seen all that interested. However, a large part of that is the competition. 11 rounds. Who gives a shit? Look at the people that you're fighting. Okay, it should be 10 rounds. You probably should have beaten Felice in that 3rd. But whatever. Let's just talk about the fact that Jessica Andrade is a murderer. Michelle Waterson is a top 5, top 10 contender at the very bare minimum. Lexa Grasso is a top 5, top 10 contender at the bare minimum. And Jan was on a killer roll before Carlos Esparza just ran right through her. But you can't discredit her in the slightest bit. She was on a solid roll. So all that stuff is solid. I think they're solid opposition. When you put her up against lesser competition, the volume's still there. The striking's decent. She has a career takedown defense numbers of 75%. And that's actually really solid considering she got taken down 5 times in her last fight against Jan. So traditionally, outside of that one fight, the takedown defense has been there. She's got superior striking to Jessica Penne. She's got enough grappling that even if she was to get in a bad position, she's going to overcome said bad position. It's all good stuff. Penne is actually 3 years older. The difference there is that she had the 3-year-long layoff. So she's not, does she still want to do this? 100% she wants to do this. The OnlyFans thing wasn't going on that good. This is how she makes her money. She wants to fight. And that Godinez fight, I did not agree with the decision whatsoever. All she did was backpack her, man. You can't win a fight just on a backpack. Was her rear naked choke? No. Was there any damage? No. She got outstruck. She won the first. I'll give her that on the basis of the body triangle. But outside of that one round, she got outstruck in 2 and 3. This is a fight, not just I'm going to hang on to my opponent and try to neutralize them. But all the same, solid victory for her in that she needed a win. She needed to return to a win. But I wasn't all that impressed. It wasn't like her skills had suddenly become a lot better. She is who we always believed her to be. And to be honest, the reason why I think she's so hesitant with, this is going to sound so rude. The reason why she doesn't really like striking is she's not built to strike. She got a huge schnoz on her, man, okay? And that thing gets smacked, it's just going to tear you up, bleed, break. And that oftentimes when you see her eating damage, she's fine. And the schnoz is in pieces. You mentioned the fact that you think Karolina can knock her out. I'm not so sure about that. And I say
TKO,
that.
not knock her out. But
right.
Maybe.
TKO.
Yeah.
TKO possible, only because knock her out, good luck. The only 2 girls that have finished her due to strikes, Joanny and Jessica Andrade, they're the 2 amongst the 2 greatest power punchers of their division. And beyond that, she took 126 shots against Joanna before the ref was like, I can't watch this anymore, man. And she took 117 against Jessica Andrade. So I really don't think that Karolina Kowalkiewicz is going to come in and land well over 100 significant strikes and swarm her and batter her. But in both of those situations, she's not unconscious. Is that there's so much blood spewing out of her face, the ref's just like, I need to stop this fight. And they'll step in and stop it. If Karolina swarms her, she could TKO her. But I just think she's going to fight the smart game plan. She's not going to try to get too close because she doesn't want to get engaged in these grappling type situations, but use the takedown defense to keep the fight standing, remain at distance as long as you can, and just use the superior numbers, superior output to beat her to the punch and bust her up. And then last but not least, even if it is close, the judges are going to score with the girl whose face is not completely busted open because it's a human perception, right? Oh, this is a close fight, but one person's bleeding all over the place, the other one's not. Well, it's just a nosebleed. Who cares? It's just a nosebleed. Well, there's blood all over the place. that's what you end up remembering. So I honestly think that even if it goes to the scorecards, the judges should get this one right. If you put Godinez versus Penne in Texas, they probably give it to Godinez. She had the superior boxing, she landed the better shots, and then she got clung on to. Texas doesn't like that. At least watch the boxing, right? Boxing, if you stay to the back and you land nice counter punches and you stick a move, and the other guy just bulls forward, they usually score to the guy that bulls forward. Texas is excited. This is going to have a live crowd. The live crowd's going to be excited. They're going to want engagement, not backpacking and sticking to. So I went with Karolina Kowalkiewicz by decision plus 120. If you didn't agree with that and you want to go Jessica Penne, I think you go Jessica Penne by decision, which is plus 180. You could do that stupid thing I always mention, right? You put a $100 bet on both sides because what's this fight to go the distance? It's like 4-1, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the odds maker agrees this thing goes the distance. We all agree it goes the distance. The only reason I haven't given you the fight goes the distance props is because it's minus 400. It's just too big. But you juice up whoever you intend on picking by decision, right? We believe this goes decision. If Karolina wins, my opinion, by decision. If Jessica Penne springs the upset, it's going to be much of the same that she did against Godinez. Engage in the grappling, neutralize her up against the cage, try to take the back, put a body triangle in, win 2 of the 3 rounds. It wouldn't be pretty, but it would still go the distance. So my official play will be Karolina plus 120 by decision.
Just to give some credence to Jessica Penne, my guy, again, PayPal my money, DFS, Karolina getting backpacked. That's probably your best way to win this fight is just, again, engage in the grappling, find the back, and just get some control time, or potentially that submission, which also pays. I just want to get that number here for you guys real quick. Penne by submission plus 535. So not too bad of a line on that side at all. All right.
7 years ago. So 8 years ago. That's her last submission win is 8 years ago. And keep in mind, she failed to do anything against Danielle Taylor.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying, right? Well, she beat Godinez in a return fight. I thought she lost. Yeah. The fight before that, she looked awful. There's a 3-year gap in between. Yeah. How can Penne pull this off? But MMA gods are going to shit on me and be able to somehow pull this off.
It's going to be Jessica Penne and that schnoz. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. Apparently somebody that did not look good on the scales and needed the box of shame, Mr. Ed Herman steps in to fight Alonzo Menifield. In terms of odds, you got minus an obvious chalk here on Alonzo Menifield, minus 240, plus 200 the return on the 40-year-old and will be now 40-fight veteran Ed Herman. Pretty easy fight to break down, right? Alonzo Menifield early. Ed Herman potentially late. However, I'm not 100% sold on the fact that Ed Herman will completely turn it on at the end of this fight and, take over a compromised Alonzo Menifield. We've seen Menifield go 50 minutes in the past, obviously against Devin Clark. And even though, he ended up losing that fight, it didn't seem like he was just hunched over and ready to die. So I think that's kind of what Ed Herman would need to get a late finish in this spot. But I wouldn't hate a potential live betting spot on Ed Herman in this if he is at a pretty good number after that first round. However, I do think that Alonzo Menifield is still going to go out there and find that first round knockout. Ed Herman surprisingly is on a 3-fight winning streak in 2021, but that comes over guys again like Patrick Cummins, Khadisi Bragimov, and then a fight that he definitely lost against Mike Rodriguez, but pulled off that veteran savvy move, making it look like a low blow rather than a body shot. Takes the time to recover, comes back, and then eventually finishes Mike Rodriguez himself. So I'd be surprised if he gets the same type of finish here against somewhat better Alonzo Menifield. We obviously know Mike Rodriguez not the greatest fighter anymore, or at least never really achieved the potential a lot of people expected him to have. But Alonzo Menifield, I still feel like he has time to groom himself to get a little bit better in this game. Just try to work your gas tank a little bit better, right? Like, let's try to conserve it over 15 minutes rather than just trying to take somebody's head off within 5. However, luckily for him, I think that his explosiveness and his speed should be able to find his way to his chin, to Ed Herman's chin in this fight, and eventually get that knockout. It's been about 4 years, I believe, since Ed Herman was last knocked out by Nikita Krylov via head kick, and then before that, 2 fights earlier against Derek Brunson, where he got starts within 35 seconds. I think Alonzo Menifield can absolutely replicate that in this spot. How Ed Herman is still actively fighting in 2021, and again, like I said, how he still has a 3-fight winning streak is beyond me. But again, when you look at that level of competition, you're like, okay, I kind of get it. Alonzo Menifield, though, seems like the type of guy that he's probably not going to be able to beat. So let's go Menifield by knockout, obviously, minus 130. Menifield in round 1, plus 165. I don't mind those lines either. Is he going to pull off another Von Prue choke like he did against Fabio Serrano last time around? I don't think so. I think he just got lucky in terms of the positioning and everything with that. I'd be surprised if he finds Ed Herman in a similar situation. So yeah, I'm going Menifield, like I said, minus 130 on the KO prop and plus 165 for him to win inside round 1. Not touching that money line though. Give me a guy that, shows that he can win a fight outside of 5 minutes, and then I'll be willing to lay that minus 240. But if he only has about 5 minutes to have like legit success, I don't want anything to do with that. How do you feel about this matchup between the 40-year-old and Alonzo Menifield?
Yeah, that's it, man. Ed Herman's the last of the Mohicans. I mean, I can't claim I watched the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. I didn't watch the second season as well, but I started watching. It was season 3. Ed Herman made it to the finals and lost to Kendall Grove. And as far as being a 185-pound fighter, Ed Herman's a problem for a lot of guys, you know, a guy that wrestled collegiately, solid grappling, cast iron chin, striking, leaves something to be desired, but has a willingness to go out there and engage and grind on guys. And, again, he's one of the original first guys that I would watch when I first got into the sport. And the fact that he's still kicking it in 2021, it's amazing. But long gone are the days of middleweight short fuse. He ends up going to light heavyweight and, man, has some mixed success. Actually enters this fight on a 3-fight winning streak, if you can imagine that. But hearing that he's struggling to make weight, that he had to come in with the towel, again, this is all just signs of too much growth. He's 40 years old. He's getting a lot bigger. He's last fight Mike Rodriguez a year ago, so he's coming off a year-long layoff. He's 40. His body's just naturally getting a lot bigger. He doesn't get up and run the miles anymore. His knees are hurting from the days of wrestling in college. He's just slowing down altogether, right? I mentioned to Paul Shaughnessy, I think if Ed Herman was at his best, a prime version of him, I think he's a massive problem here for a guy like Alonzo Menifield, in that Menifield has the perception that he's going to gas out after one, and a grinding type fighter is going to be a problem for him. Devin Clark actually got busted up the first 3 minutes of that fight, right? Yeah. Eyes almost swelling shut, and then he just relies to just grappling, sitting on the grappling, right? Press him up against the cage. Can't take him down. By the way, Menifield's takedown defense was badass for the first 10 minutes.
Very impressive.
Solid hips. All Clark had to do was just press him into the cage. And then in the third round, he finally got the takedown. Ends up winning the decision. Solid victory for Clark. The next time out against Aubin St. Preux, he's so gun-shy, worried about getting gassed out and getting tired. He just stood there and stared at him. It was a terrible performance, but is still a former title challenger in OSP. So again, I'm going to write you a pass. Even though the Fabio Charant fight was over quick, Fabio Charant took the fight on 2 days notice?
Yeah.
And it ended in a minute. It doesn't really tell you anything. There was a swagger to him. There was a confidence to him. He looks in awesome shape. And even though he's 33, and even though he seemingly has cardio issues and has way too much muscle, keep in mind that he was only like 10-0 when he signed to the UFC. And most of those were first round finishes. So he's still very inexperienced. And now you're seeing him get that little bit more experience. Ed Herman's got the funniest striking numbers his last fight against Mike Rodriguez. He gets outstruck 31-21 in the first, loses. He gets outstruck 24 to 18 in the second round, loses. In the third round, he got outstruck 34-1. and he won the fight in the third round with a fucking submission. Yeah, so dude, that's a hell of a buzzer beater. Should he have won that fight? No. And if the ref would have caught it, he wouldn't have won. Fight before that, Cody Saftic. Okay, well, Cody Saftic went 0-4 in the UFC, and Da Eung Jung submitted him, right? Roman Dolitz knocked him out. Where was the finish out of Herman there? Pat Cummins is Pat Cummins. I think we all know where Cummins' chin's at, right? So I hate to shit on Ed Herman, and I'm always very happy to see him win. It's just this is going to be a tough spot for him. The first 5 minutes of the fight are going to be very hectic. Alonzo Menifield might be able to break the code. Ed Herman was also you can't knock him out, cast iron, but eventually they did get to him. Nikita Krylov and Derek Brunson both knocked him out fairly quickly into those fights. So yeah, I think durability could be an issue. Menifield should put him on him early. If Menifield takes his time, doesn't quite get that knockout in the first, I don't think his cardio is quite as bad as we're knocking on. He's not just a one-round guy. It's that he's a one-round guy if you're going to grind on him. And I don't think this version of Herman is going to grind on him. So he's going to be able to fight at a slower pace, should be able to get the job done. The props that I was looking at, I think we're on the same page. The Menifield by knockout was -125. But to be honest, there's not a whole lot of props that I like on this one. I feel like the under 2.5 is a good spot, but the number's not great. Menifield by knockout, it's still -125. Him by money line, not great. As far as props, I could just pass on this fight altogether, but gun to my head, have to choose one that I like the most. I do got a feeling that Menifield finishes this thing inside the distance, so Menifield by knockout -120.
I will just say round 2 Menifield is also +450 just in case he decides to pace himself a little bit and then let go in the second round. There's definitely that. I do want to give a shout out to my guy Buffalo on the beat here. He said Ed Herman should be a high school gym teacher, and then he goes on to call him Phys Ed. Herman. I fucking love that. Probably one of my favorite comments all week regarding this card. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got one that I don't really have the greatest thoughts on and no real confidence, so I can't wait to hear your thoughts here. We got Draco Rodriguez taking on Vince Morales. In terms of odds, we got -115 on Rodriguez, -105 on Vince Morales. Now, it seems like a fight where I believe the most amount of success for Draco Rodriguez would be if he decided to take this fight to the ground and try to grapple fuck Vince Morales. Vince Morales, on the other hand, seems to be the guy that wants to keep it on the feet, let his hands go, try to use his boxing and his footwork to get the best of the damage and hopefully sway the judges his way. Morales in his last fight against Chris Gutierrez got his leg absolutely whacked off. That I don't think that Mr. Draco Rodriguez will be able to replicate that type of game plan. So I don't think that Vince Morales has really much to worry about there. And I do believe he had some sort of leg or ACL injury that he had sustained right after that fight. And that fight was just about a year ago. So he's taking the time off. Now he's coming back, looks better, ready to go. His interviews, he seems very fired up and ready to get back inside the cage. And this seems like a solid opportunity for him to go out there and get back into the winning track in the UFC. I thought he personally won the Benito Lopez fight. I'm surprised that fight was actually scored for Benito Lopez. It seemed like a fight where it was just striker with his hands versus striker with his kicks, with Lopez being the kicker. And it seemed like the judges were definitely favoring the kicks more than they were favoring the hands of Vince Morales. But if you look on MMA decisions, pretty much all the media members and a lot of the fan scoring was on the Vince Morales side. So I do think that Morales will have the edge on the feet here. I do think he'll be successful in keeping it upright. And I do think he'll have success in terms of landing the better shots and swaying the judges with the damage that he's going to be able to inflict on Draco Rodriguez. Does he knock out Rodriguez as Ayman Zahabi did in his last fight? I don't think so. I think that we'll see him a little bit more conservative in terms of his power, allowing his volume to do a little bit more of the talking and the work in this fight. So I do like Vince Morales -105. I don't mind that betting line. Again, probably my least confident fight on the entire card. But in terms of predictions, like I said, Morales -105 money line is not too bad. But Morales via decision +250, I like that spot as well. How are you feeling about this matchup? You going to give a little bit more credence to Draco, or do you like Vince Morales as well?
Yeah, honestly, it's hard to get a read on, but I think I'd go with the Draco Rodriguez side of things. And honestly, there's no real edge here. There's no real key answer. I just think that Draco Rodriguez's boxing is a little bit better, and that he could potentially mix in the grappling, in which he's got decent jiu-jitsu. His wrestling's not great, and I think that Morales has got the wrestling advantage and should be able to stuff the shots, keep this fight standing. But Vince Morales just fights with too low of ring IQ for my liking. Keep in mind that Vince Morales comes from a wrestling base. Okay, he wrestled in high school. When he got into mixed martial arts, he got into mixed martial arts as a wrestler. He's from Oregon, a state notorious for their wrestling programs, trains at a gym with a whole bunch of wrestlers, and his cousin is Ricky Simone. And yet, he's never completed, never even attempted one single takedown. He shows 0% numbers because he hasn't even shot one. Now, when you fight a guy like Chris Gutierrez, who is a pretty one-dimensional striker, who you know is going to try to kick your legs because that's all he ever does is the leg kick, and is coming off a fight with Cody Durden, where Durden, a 25 that took the fight on a few days' notice, is able to take him down and control him for all of the first round. Got a 10-8 first round just on that much control. And you don't even shoot one single takedown. And he's kicking your leg, and he's busting you up, and not at any point was he like, I should take this to the ground. So that kind of one-dimensionalness, not enough for me. So then I go back, okay, why does he want to stay standing so much? Is he a great striker? No, he's not some great striker. I mean, his output's a little bit too low for me. He has scored knockdowns against Benito Lopez. He got it at the tail end of the first round, and he did score a win or a knockdown over Domingo Pilarte on the Contender Series, but both times he failed to yield a knockout win. He actually lost both fights, and the last time he's won a fight by knockout was like 3.5 years ago. So if he's not some big power puncher, then he's got to be a volume guy, and yet he's not a volume guy. The fight with Song Yadong was his highest numbers, but the fight with Ayman, it was low output from both guys. Not a very exciting fight, not a very good fight, but he beat Ayman Zahabi. The Benito Lopez fight, I agree, he probably should have won that fight. Most people agree he probably should have won that fight. But let's analyze why he lost that fight. In the first round, he gets completely outstruck. He does nothing for the entire first round. He's just, Lopez not doing much either, but he's kicking. Leg kick, body kick, leg kick, body kick. Lopez is clearly winning the first. Minute left, and Morales drops him with the right hand. As soon as he drops him, Benito Lopez immediately recovers, fishes for a triangle choke, gets back up to his feet. Morales doesn't even want to play on the ground, and then the round ends. So the flash knockdown is what would have won him the round, but he did get outstruck for that round. The second round's a lot of the same. He doesn't do anything for the majority of the second round until the last minute or two. Then he turns it on, and it's enough to squeak out the second round. The third round's all Vince Morales. I'm not sure how anybody scores that round against him. But my point is that he just waits too long fighting a lot of these guys and allows them to get their combinations off before he even thinks of doing anything. Against Gutierrez, he did exactly that once again. He just allowed Gutierrez to get off first in all the exchanges and blow his leg off before he chose to do anything about it. Now, I'll give him this. He's got the experience advantage because he's fought Chris Gutierrez and he's fought Ayman Zahabi, the guy that just knocked out Rodriguez. And he's fought Song Yadong, who's pretty legit, who we'll talk about later on in the card. So the experience is definitely towards him. And his durability, pretty good. I think his durability is pretty solid enough. The wrestling, probably slight advantage for him. I just don't have enough trust for this guy to put it all together. Now, I know Rodriguez just got knocked out. He's 0-1 in the UFC. I get all that. But he's still young enough. I think that his chin's not an issue. He's still making some improvements. He's got the hand speed advantage. He's got the technical boxing advantage. And I'm hoping he just goes out there and outpoints him, uses the superior volume to get the job done. But honestly, like, what's the confidence level at? Not very big. The props that I ended up going with was the fight goes the distance at -135. If Rodriguez is chinny, then yeah, Morales catches him, sure. But Morales is traditionally a decision guy. He wins the majority of his fights by decision at this level. And flip side to that, Rodriguez is, yeah, Ayman caught him, fair, give him that. Ayman, at his best, is a talented fighter, right? But he doesn't seem to have chin issues. His only other career loss is to Tony Gravely. He went deep into some championship rounds at Gravely, and as we all know, Gravely pretty legit. So, yeah, fight goes the distance, -135. I took the Draco Rodriguez by decision at +200.
Quick question regarding Draco Rodriguez. Apparently, he had some issues with King of the Cage when he used to fight for them.
Yes.
Do you know what that was about? If you can briefly just talk about that.
Yeah, 100%. So Draco Rodriguez signed a contract with King of the Cage, which was like a 4-fight deal. Now, what Terry Trubelock from King of the Cage does is he'll sign a lot of these young guys, and he'll promote you against cans the first 2 or 3 fights to try to build you up on like something he could sell. Now, what he's trying to do is get a video library put together with your fights. So eventually, you go to the UFC, and he owns the property rights to your career, right? Your early fights. So he signs Draco Rodriguez and does sign him, set him up pretty soft right off the hop, right? They do give him a title shot. He beats his Shane Moffat 6-6. He beats his Fard Muhammad, and then he signs to fight Johnny Munoz, I believe it was. Sorry, no, it wasn't. Was it Ayman?
I believe it was Johnny. I remember them talking about Johnny and him supposed to fight.
Yeah, but I don't know why Topology doesn't list it. He signed, you're 100% right. He signed a UFC contract to compete in the UFC, and then Terry was like, hey, I have a contract with you for 4 fights. You've only completed 3 or 2 or 3 of the fights. So he put the block in and was just like, no, not going to happen. And as soon as that happened, same thing happened to Jesse Arnett, you'll remember, when Stefan Patry from TKO, he was like, listen, I have a contract for you. I've sold tickets on an upcoming fight. You're my champion. You need to fight your contract out. It's bullshit because the ultimate dream from a fighter is to make it to the UFC and actually get paid. But Terry's comment still sticks in my mind to this day, which is a reason why I'm on Draco Rodriguez in the spot. Terry, you can bring it up, the interview's online. But anyways, Terry says, this kid's not UFC quality right now anyways, but he will be. His boxing is awesome. Phenomenal boxer. His jiu-jitsu, pretty good, getting a lot better. But the kid has absolutely no wrestling. Will be good in a few years, not good right now. What good does it do me to send him to the UFC and have him lose right now when he can develop in King of the Cage, get a few more fights, and then go on and be a threat down the road, which is what he wants. If you fan out from the UFC, his video library is not worth anything. He wants to build you up, right? So on that regard, by the way, Terry's piece of shit, do you know why Crazy Horse goes by Felony? Because Crazy Horse is owned by Terry. Terry has the likeness to it, right? When he was fighting for King of the Cage back in the day, he signed a likeness agreement because Charles needs the money, right? So I have a T-shirt in the back over there, and you probably can't see it, but again, I feel bad. It's all King of the Cage merchandise, and Charles don't see a dollar from that. But that's why he goes from Felony now and not Crazy Horse. He's trying to distance himself from that. So, anyways, the key point of this entire story being is that Terry saw this guy's got good boxing. He's from Iowa. Yeah, when you watch him in the TV, even the Ayman Zahabi fight, early, it's like, ooh, he's got a nasty little leg kick there on the outside. Hand speed's good, He looks like he's in it early, and then he gets clipped. Fair. I'm going to give him a pass there and say, yes, he is young. He is dynamic. His jiu-jitsu is pretty solid, man. He's got good grappling, good submissions. I just don't have enough faith in him to go out there and end up in top more times than not with the takedowns. So I'd like to see him use his boxing, win the fight striking, neutralize that leg. You watched the Benito Lopez, obviously, that fight. Benito's leg kicks didn't do the same thing as Gutierrez's leg kicks did, but they were there all night for him too. He at one point, this is right before the knockdown. Team Alpha Male yells out, his leg hurts, his body hurts. And then Morales looks at them and smiles and then drops Lopez with the right hand. Great sequence. But then he didn't want to fall him to the ground. He just seemed a little bit hesitant. There just wasn't enough there for me personally. So I'll go Rodriguez. I wouldn't fault anybody for going Morales. And they will both be very low in the PRB.
All right, let's move on to the prelim headline here. And we got an absolute banger between Rafael Fiziev going up against Bobby Green. Possible disrespect on Bobby Green in terms of the betting line here. We got minus 290 on Fiziev and plus 245 on Bobby Green. It's not often you see Bobby Green this big of an underdog, right? More often than not, he's the big favorite going up against guys that are the big underdogs. I believe at least 3 out of his last 5 fights, he was the heavy favorite. And even the last fight that he was actually scheduled for with Jim Miller, he was another big favorite around that minus 300 range before. Apparently, he collapsed backstage after the weight cut and then didn't end up making it to the cage. Obviously, they ended up cutting or scratching that fight, but here he is back, hopefully ready to go. I'm not sure if he's actually weighed in yet, but hopefully he looks good on the scales. But the guy's a veteran, right? The guy has close to 40 fights. The guy has done this over and over again. I don't recall any time in the past outside of that Jim Miller situation where he's really had a tough weight cut or had weight cutting issues. So I think that was more of an anomaly than anything. In terms of the striking style here and the styles in terms of how these guys match up, actually, Fiziev, we know he was the original striking coach over there at Tiger Muay Thai. Seems like Tiger Muay Thai is slowly starting to fall apart now. We have the Hickman brothers leaving there. I believe Fiziev has officially left as well. He's actually training down there full-time at Sanford now, which is great for him. Obviously, just to round out that full game that he has to bring to the table, which looks absolutely nasty. The thing that I like most about him, especially that Mark Diakese fight, is that he's showing maturity in his MMA game, going for takedowns and not just relying on his striking. There are opportune moments for him to take advantage of the grappling, which he did in that fight against Mark Diakese, centered around a lot of the leg kicks that he was able to land on Diakese, setting up the takedowns and the rest of the success that he had in that fight. The Renato Moicano fight seemed like it was starting off a little bit iffy just because he was still just trying to find the range and trying to get on the inside of Fiziev to land his kicks and land his punches. And then obviously I don't really expect him to go out there and try to take a guy like Renato Moicano down, obviously because Moicano has such a drastic grappling advantage in that realm. So there's no point in him going out there to take that. But he didn't need a full MMA game to go out there and dispatch of Renato Moicano after destroying him with a beautiful 3-punch combination, 1 to the body, 2 to the head. Absolutely drops Renato Moicano. And some people might think it was an early stoppage, but from the referee's perspective and his optically speaking, it doesn't look good the way Renato Moicano dropped, especially with his head snapping back and kind of bouncing off the canvas. It looked like he was ready to retain guard and kind of start defending, but the referee was already jumping in the way and Fiziev already got the win. So you can make a case for both sides, early stoppage, late stoppage, or perfect stoppage, I should say, but I don't mind that stoppage at all. The main thing to note, though, is that Moicano was just not completely out. He was definitely rocked in that spot. Now, here against Bobby Green, I think Bobby Green's best path to victory in terms of winning this fight is just stay in Fiziev's face. Don't let him breathe. Don't let him get his kicks off. Keep him on his back foot. Crowd him with punches, but Bobby Green is a little bit too lackadaisical at times, so can you really trust him to go out there and do that? Now, if you're putting a gun to my head and tell me where's the value on this fight in terms of the money line, I gotta say Bobby Green plus 245 in my opinion is a spit in the face of a veteran, of somebody who has 3 times the amount of experience that Fiziev brings to the table here. Albeit we can definitely take Fiziev's Muay Thai career into consideration. It probably evens out a little bit more. But in terms of professional MMA fights, it's completely a night and day in terms of the experience here. But I do think Fiziev is the goods, man. I wish he was closer to minus 150, though, as I believe that was the correct line that the opener was. I believe it should be around minus 150 to a plus 130. But you guys come here for the props. We try to find that little edge for you guys to make it a little bit more bettable. And I think the way to approach this fight is going to be to take Fiziev via decision in this spot. That's the prop that I like the most. Even the over 2.5 at minus 175, a little bit chalky, but I think that both guys are quite durable, and we'll see this go the full 3 rounds. I know Fiziev was able to get Moicano out of there the last time around, but it seems like Moicano has a little bit of durability issues, whereas Bobby Green, the last time he got put out, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago by Dustin Poirier. Will Fiziev be able to replicate that? Maybe. but he really has to get his punches going. But a lot of his game is centered around his kicks. So if he can just continuously kick, work the body of Bobby Green, work the legs of Bobby Green, he should be able to start swaying the judges over to his side. But Fiziev by decision, we got plus 130. I like that. And then on the flip side, again, if you like Green at plus 400 to win by decision isn't too bad, although plus 245 is already good enough value on him in that straight betting market. So yeah, I like Fiziev like by decision. Like I said, I believe that line once again is plus 130. How do you feel about this matchup between the up and coming Fiziev and that hard-nosed veteran Bobby Green?
Yeah, listen, I would love to have gotten at the minus 145 that Fiziev opened at, but right. I will fully admit, I never saw that line anywhere, right? So I agree with the movement. I agree with the money coming in on Fiziev. And why is Bobby Green the value side? Listen, this fight's likely going to decision. Almost every Bobby Green fight goes to decision, and almost every Bobby Green fight that goes to decision is pretty competitive. So like you always mentioned, the fight goes the distance. It's competitive. You're in Texas, the worst commission in the world, and you're holding a ticket. Do you want a 3-1 Fiziev ticket? Or do you want that plus 220 Bobby Green ticket? I hear you there, man, but Fiziev's the truth. I honestly think this guy is the real deal, and him leaving Tiger Muay Thai to go to Sanford MMA is awesome. You know, that's actually a very step in the right direction. At Tiger, you've got a great gym, destination gym, but yeah, who is the wrestling coach there? George Hickman. I got a little respect for both Hickman brothers, but you know, if you were to put a list of top, I don't know. They're guys that went over there. If you notice with Tiger Muay Thai, this is the model. You bring in an ex-fighter, mid-level ex-fighter, they take over the program. So they start off as Brian Ebersol, right? Then Brian Ebersol does it for 2-3 years. Then he hands the torch over to Roger Huerta. Then Roger Huerta does it for a few years. He hands the torch over to the Hickman brothers. They've done it for a few years. And the guy now is like Don Carlos. He's 9-4 guy from New York. Like, that's what it is. His training partners there, legendary training partners, but guys that came over with legendary resumes. Peter Yan didn't show up to Tiger Muay Thai as a nobody, you know? He was Peter Yan when he showed up. You think Valentina Shevchenko showed up to Tiger Muay Thai needing some help with her game? No, she's Valentina Shevchenko. A lot of the Alexander Volkanovski, you know, like a lot of the people that have gone there, they've gone there because it's a destination gym. You know what? I'd like to go to Thailand for a couple months. It's really cheap to live. Got a dorm right next to the gym. I'm going to train my Muay Thai, you know, and be in the sun for a while. Sanford, okay, cool destination still because it's South Florida, but really it's a cast iron gym full of killers. Henry Hoof, as far as being a striking coach goes, what gym could you go and get better guidance than that? As far as the guys in the room that are wrestling, he's got some of the best wrestlers in the world. He's got some of the best grapplers in the world. He's got some of the best BJJ guys. He's got Gilbert Burns. He's got all of this great cast of guys to work with. He's going to start realizing his potential, and I think that his potential is infinite. I bet him. See, I got kind of screwed on Fiziev. I had him over Magomed Mustafayev in his debut, and all I did was talk this kid up. All I did was talk him up, and he eats a spinning back kick in the face right in the first round. Minute and a half in, knocked out. Shit. We get him over Alex White. We get him over Mark Diakese. I bailed out on the Hanato Moicano fight. Fight starts. He is chewing Moicano up. Moicano did land a couple decent shots. Zipped him a few times, but the kid looks like he's got a good chin. His little Sanchai fade away. People love that. The crowd loves that. All good for business. Leg kicks look heavy. His hook combinations look heavy. This guy looked like the real deal. I'm thinking to myself, Hanato, shoot the takedown. What are you doing? Get this to the ground. He shot and he ran headfirst into an oak tree. I was like, oh, I'm screwed. And once he couldn't get that fight to the ground, he got knocked out shortly thereafter. If you look at Fiziev, who comes in with a very reputable Muay Thai background, training in Thailand, where's the wrestling coming from? Alex White went 0 for 11 on takedown attempts against him. Fair, but it's Alex White. Mark Diakese, a much better wrestler, went 0 for 4 on takedowns over him. Okay, but it's Mark Diakese. Hanato Moicano, better than the two of them, smacked into that oak tree and realized right away, oh shit. He went 0 for 1. He shows a 100% takedown defense in the UFC. So I think Bobby, to win this fight, Bobby would have to mix in some of that wrestling, and I just don't see it happening. I think the Fiziev's going to be landing the bigger shots. Bobby might have a little bit more volume, but his leg's going to be getting chewed off. The bigger shots, the more wowing shots are going to come from Fiziev. And last but not least, Bobby Green will not win a decision in Texas. This, every time you get hit, not going to fly there because they're going to recognize that you, in fact, have gotten hit. Now, Bobby Green has a tendency to do this. Him versus Jakar Close. He outstruck Jakar Close 92-58 and scored the fight's only takedown. Lost the decision. Him versus Francisco Trinaldo. He outstruck him 50-31 and scored 2 takedowns for only 1 versus Trinaldo. He lost the decision. Him versus Thiago Moises. He outstruck him 85-42, and they both had 2 takedowns apiece. And he lost that decision. I thought he won all 3. MMA Decisions thinks he won all 3. The judges never scored these close fights for Bobby Green because of this. It's tough. They don't like it. They don't like it. It's an arrogant thing. And again, it comes back to human nature. The guy gets hit and he does this and he shakes his head. Nope, nope, nope. And the other guy's laser focused and it's a close fight. You don't give it to Bobby Green. And they don't give it to Bobby Green. And so I do think this thing goes the distance. And I do think it's competitive. But in the end, that decision's going towards Rafael Fiziev. The 2 shots I took here was fight goes the distance, -140. If Bobby springs my narrative and beats me, he's not. When was the last time Bobby Green finished anybody?
Yeah.
He kicked James Krause in the balls 3 times, and that was, I think, 7 years ago, right?
Yeah.
He's not finishing anything. So if he springs the upset, it's going the distance. -140. I'm going to hit that. But I think Fiziev's going to be landing those better shots, chew up the leg, fight a smart game plan, and the +125 Fiziev by decision is the way I end up going.
I like it. It feels like we're already talking about the main card, but that's the prelim headliner, fellas.
Crazy.
That's a fucking amazing fight. So, getting right before we get into the main card here, I do want to remind you guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and then obviously go out and check out Cody's YouTube channel, which is obviously linked in the description below. Loved that freaking that Travis Fulton documentary that you put out. Perfectly edited, perfectly produced, and a great story as well. I think a lot of people enjoyed it. Do you have any plans right now in terms of dropping your next one, or how's that looking?
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why my schedule's been all over the place is that, like, essentially, when I went to college, they said this. When I first started working at Fight Network, it turned out to be true. Now that I'm doing my own side projects, it's always been the same, is that 1 minute of editing is 1 hour is how long it takes, right? So the video is 30 minutes long. It's 30 hours worth of editing. And that's what that video took to edit. I can write a script in a day and a half. That's no problem. It's the editing that takes the long time. So this episode 2, my problem is once I dropped it on the timeline, start editing it, it's like 40 minutes long. To which effect I've got like 32 minutes done. I'm thinking it should be able to be done by late tomorrow, if not like Sunday or Monday kind of thing. I'm just trying to figure out best time to launch it. And then the episode 3, which is already in the pipeline, it's only like 12, 13 minutes because I don't want everyone to just think they're always going to be 30, 40 minutes long.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm struggling with is the first one's about fight fixing and the second one's about fight fixing as well. But they're not all about fight fixing. You know, some of them are some guy killed somebody or somebody had they all have interesting stories, but it's not necessarily always fight fixing. So to release the second episode as more fight fixing, I don't want people to then be like, oh, every episode's fight fixing. I almost want to drop episode 3 as episode 2 just to like, first episode's half hour, next one will be 12 minutes in a different subject matter, and then the third one's long again in the same subject matter. But I think it's dope. I think it's coming together pretty good. And I really appreciate all the feedback from the last one. Again, it has like 4,000 or 5,000 views. That's low, but it's evergreen content. You could watch the video a year from now and it would still be relevant. And I think, I've got in my mind written out all my ideas, all my scripts. I got every season's 8 episodes, and I got 5 seasons worth of episodes. So maybe somebody comes along the way, 3-4 episodes in, says, I like this, put it on my channel, or a sponsor or whatever the case may be. But yeah, man, I'm having a lot of fun with it. And ultimately, I like to tell stories, right? I like to tell true stories. And that's what these stories are, right? All this information is readily available. I've just put it all in one place and hopefully made it entertaining to the viewer. And then for the editing side of things, when I went to college, I hated it. Didn't want to do editing, right? But it was like, you might as well learn all the skills. So you learn to be camera guy, and you learn to do editing, and you learn to write, and you learn to do on-air stuff. And I thought, maybe I'll do on-air stuff, but I didn't think I'd be an editor. But to get your foot in the door in any industry, you got to be willing to do anything. And the first job I was offered was as an editor. And then I did that for like 8, 9, 10 years, man. Like I've been at Fight Network for 10 years, edited the entire time I was there. And then since we've been off on the pandemic, haven't done it as much. So I kind of missed it a little bit, right? So it's been cool for me too. And I just like looking back on old fights and going through this old stuff. And so even just like the old Travis Fulton stuff, like you'd go and you'd find some crazy knockout that you hadn't seen in years, or that you maybe never seen ever. Right? He's got 300 fights, right? And then there's the dark side of it as well. So yeah, the feedback's been awesome. I really appreciate all the people that took time to write, send it to a friend, do all that jazz. And hopefully just even better episodes to come in the future.
Absolutely. I think it's great and well needed in this industry because there's not a lot of people putting that much detail and work into stuff like that. And there's not many people that know it like you do as well, right? You know where to look, you know where to get the proper information, and you definitely know how to tell the story as well.
Yeah, the frustrating part though is that, like, again, you put the work in, and I think it's a solid product. And the people that have watched it, again, it's not like it's killing it numbers wise. We can sit here and do a preview video for an hour, and it'll get bigger numbers than that. And that costs us no fucking time, an hour of our time, and we did the research anyways. So in that case, it's a little bit of a letdown, I suppose. But it's just like, no, man.
It's
to me,
only going to gain traction.
yeah,
It's,
and to me,
a
it's
snowball,
rewarding.
man.
Exactly.
Now people know where to find it, and they're going to continuously pass it along as you drop more episodes for sure.
Yeah, and it's personally rewarding, and I think that's the main takeaway here is that, like, I've seen a bunch of other channels. I'm like, what are these guys doing? They're doing some similar type stuff. But what are they doing that could help me? What could I take notes from? Always willing to learn, always willing to take constructive criticism. And their stuff, it's like, what was really wrong with Conor McGregor's ankle? And it's just like, I don't want to be that guy.
What they're doing, Cody.
I know what they're doing.
You don't want to do that, but you know what they're doing.
Exactly. So I would rather give it a catchy title that is convoluted and nobody fucking clicks on it, but it means something to me, man.
Yeah.
So keep your eyes open for episode 2. Should be dropping shortly enough.
Absolutely. I can't wait for the next round. I'm sure more people are going to continue to eat it up as you start dropping them. All right, let's get to the main card. First fight. Very excited about this one. -125 on Casey Kenney, +105 on Song Yadong. I love Casey Kenney in this spot, man. I feel like Song Yadong is, I don't want to say completely plateaued, but he's gotten to a point where he's like, okay, I know he's 23 years old, but it feels like he's just left everything in the cage and the ring already, even before getting to the UFC. The guy's had absolute wars in the past, but it seems like his game is kind of just starting to get to the point where we know what to expect from the guy. You know, I know he's training over there at Alpha Male, but it seems like it's not really progressing his career any further. He wants to go out there, take your head off, or, you know, he has some decent grappling exchanges back and forth, but it seems like the most amount of success he has is when he's able to convince people to trade in the pocket with him, trade in the fire with him, and more often than not, he's able to get the better of them in those spots. Kyler Phillips played it perfectly, right? He played the Matador game there. He stuck and moved for the first 2 rounds solidly. Seemed like he was starting to slow down in the 3rd round, and Song Yadong was able to take advantage of it, having some grappling success in that matchup. But I feel as though he's going to be pushed a lot here against Casey Kenney, who is improving on a fight-to-fight basis. And some people might scoff at the fact that he has a loss to Dominic Cruz in 2021. Dominic Cruz can still go out there and fight, man. The guy has solid fight IQ. His footwork still work wonders. And the fact that he has a very underrated wrestling game that a lot of people don't expect allows him to, like, eke out some of these decisions here. Great work by him, you know, at the ending of a couple of those rounds where he's able to secure a takedown late to, you know, possibly sway the judges his way. Obviously, he ends up getting the victory that night. But I still believe that Casey Kenney is probably between top 5 and top 10 best scramblers inside the UFC, especially when we're talking about grappling sequences. And I think we're going to see it on full display here against Song Yadong. The thing that I like the most, though, about Kenney is his improving striking. And I feel like we have somewhat of a rudimentary striker here with Song Yadong, who, again, really needs to trade in the pocket to have a ton of success. I think we'll see Casey Kenney stick and move, not to the effect of Kyler Phillips, but get some solid combinations off, get some solid body kicks off, as he showed in the Haile Yalatang fight. And I think he'll have some success with that, eventually leading him to landing takedowns, whether it's in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round. I really like Casey Kenney in this spot. I think he's going to be able to stay away from the big shots of Song Yadong. I'm pretty certain that Casey Kenney's never been knocked out as well. Great chin, great durability. I've seen him eat some big shots in the past and continue chugging forward. I felt as though Nathaniel Wood was a little bit tougher of a striking matchup for him, and he did a very good job in terms of stifling Nathaniel Wood in that fight, but obviously he has more power that he's going to have to worry about here with Song Yadong, and if he can avoid that, I think he definitely wins this fight, and I think this -125 line is going to look like an absolute gift if he goes out there and orchestrates a fight that is best for him, which is, again, striking and then grappling as well to get some control time. So I'm going to go with Casey Kenney. Casey Kenney by decision is going to be the way I go here, +170. I do believe Song Yadong does slow later in fights, and I think we'll see Casey Kenney actually push him and start to exploit that cardio later in this fight, but I just don't believe that Casey Kenney will actually find the finish in this fight. I do think that Song is quite durable, and I do think he'll be able to take the shots and stay out of any submission attempts from the black belt Casey Kenney. But in case you do believe that Kenney could take advantage of that gas tank, +700, +800 for Kenney by submission, and then Kenney by in round 3 +1600 is a decent spot. But I think the one that I'm going to be going with the most here is Kenney by decision at +170, over 2.5, -220, a little bit juiced, but I think that both guys are durable enough that we'll see 15 minutes in this fight. How do you see this fight going down, Cody? And are you as high on Casey Kenney as I am?
I'd like to be as high in Casey Kenney. I agree with all your points. The only thing I'm worried about is this thing is going to decision. It is going to be a close decision, and the judges could very well get this thing wrong. So that's what I'm worried about here, is that, again, it's going to be relatively close the entire way through. Whereas Casey Kenney, I favor the output. I favor the grappling. I mean, he's a guy that wrestled collegiately. He's got a solid judo base as well. I think he should be able to get this fight to the ground. As far as the striking goes, he's got the better output. But Song Yadong has a way of just landing these eye-catching shots. You know, he is a good striker. He is only 23 years old. And being at Team Alpha Male, you know that he's worked with a lot of guys that have that same, you know, prototypical model as someone in Casey Kenney. These short, stout little grapplers with solid grappling, solid chins, you know, decent enough striking. So I don't know. I think it is going to be close. The way I want to attack this one, first and foremost, fight goes the distance, minus 200. I get it, but I really think it's going full 15. Second of all is live betting opportunity for Casey Kenney. I think Casey Kenney will drop the first round. For whatever reason, I just think it's going to be close competitive, but he probably gets edged out slightly in the first. And I think second and third, again, you already mentioned this, Kenney takes over. I mean, he's got great cardio, great durability. And with Song Yadong, he did win the third round against Kyler Phillips, who we know definitely has cardio issues. But the two fights prior, I mean, with him versus Marlon Vera, he gets backed down, arguably loses the fight, and has a terrible third round. The fight with Cody Saftic definitely arguably lost the fight and got completely backed down in the third round. His cardio hasn't been great. We can give him a pass in that he's 23, but you're right, he seems a little bit shop-worn. He's already had 20 professional fights. And being a Chinese athlete, there's no, I'm going to take a year off and get my skills better. It's just like they run him through the mill. He just keeps fighting over and over and over again. They've thrown him in there against some elite level guys. You know, Stamen's no joke. Marlon Vera's no joke. And even though he's able to win questionably, or at least be competitive, it's just too much too soon for him. And this is just another continuation of that. Casey Kenney's a straight up badass. Casey Kenney's losses include a split decision win over Adam Antolin. Antolin was a stud in the time, but a split decision, right? A decision loss to Munoz Jr, which I don't think anybody's going to fault him for. And a split decision loss to Dominic Cruz, a former world champion. And again, I thought he lost. But, geez, close fight. Good fight. You can make an argument that Casey Kenney could have won that. It's always close. It's always competitive. Knocking him out, good luck. Submitting him, good luck. And grittiness and durability seems to be a big issue for Song Yadong. He hits you with these nice combinations, but if you're still there and you're still marching him down, you start to work your way back into it. I think Kenney will do that. I just think we might be able to get a better line on him after the first. And if he wins the first, then I'm just going to hammer whatever they give me, because that's going to be the key round. Kenney's not losing both 2 and 3. He should pick up one of those 2 on the basis of the cardio and the pace, but winning that first round will be very, very key. And then, of course, Texas probably going to screw me. So as not sexy as minus 200 is for fight goes the distance, that's the safest way of attacking this one. And then beyond that, I'm going to agree with your assessment, Kenney by decision.
I like it. I do think that Kenney has a high upside in this this bantamweight division, man. I think he could truly crack that top 5 to top 7 with a little bit more grooming, especially with his striking game. So I'm very much looking to see how he goes out there and performs against a heavy striker like Song Yadong. Do you echo that sentiment? You think Kenney is a top 5 guy, or could potentially be a top 5 guy?
I think Kenney can hang with all the top 5 guys. I think Kenney can give a good fight to almost anybody on the basis of he's extremely durable and he's a gamer. But yeah, I do almost feel like he just misses that one intangible that's going to get him over the hump. You know, he'd beat up his training partner Sean O'Malley, no doubt about that. He beat up that ilk of guys, but 135 is an absolute murder's row. Yeah. And you need that one thing. You need to either be able to, I can get these guys down, anybody down, or I can outstrike these guys. Kenney's a generalist. What's his best feat? Is he a better striker than he is a better wrestler? Is it cardio his best feat? Is it durability because he's got a great chin? Like, what does he do exceptionally better than everybody else? Which is, again, when you look at bantamweight, it's like, oh, Peter Yan's got the striking, man. And Aljamain's got that grappling. Sandhagen's got the length. TJ's got the juice. And it's like, everybody's got something that they bring to the table that's like a bona fide. And again, the low end of the division is like Jimmy Rivera and Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt. Like, Jimmy's got the kicks. Rob's got the jab. Cody, super skilled if he doesn't get punched in the face, right? Yeah. That's world caliber. That's world class caliber. Kenney can fight all of those guys. Beats Cody Garbrandt in my opinion. He can hang with a lot of these guys. He can do great, but he could also lose to a guy like Tony Gravely. Like, he could also lose to a guy that's a fringe top 10, top 15 contender on the basis of Muradovashvili. Again, if they run that fight back, do you think Kenney does any better? No. So he's never going to really get over that hump. Who knows, dude? He's extremely talented. I almost always bet on him. I don't think I've ever bet against. Oh yeah, I did have Dominic Cruz, and I might have thought Nathaniel Wood might have won that fight, but I had Kenney, and I was glad that Kenney got the decision. What you saw there though was something that Sung Yadong hasn't shown you. Tough 3 rounds, gritty, 125 strikes landed either side. Kenney digs deep with the takedown. Kenney makes it happen. Kenney shows off the high ring IQ. Yeah, that's all good stuff. And obviously that beating he put on Haile Alatang's body. The fact that a human being could kick any object in this planet 100 times, like Kenney kicked him in the body, is impressive, man. I do think he's getting better. I think he's talented. I don't know that he ever challenges for a world title. I don't know that he ever cracks the top 5.
Joe Todero is saying they brought out the box for Kenney and he weighed in at 136. So let's see how that affects his performance tomorrow. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Tecia Torres and Angela Hill going at it for a rematch, a fight that took place actually at UFC 188, the night that the heavyweight GOAT got choked up by Fabricio Verdum. We got, I believe that was June of 2015. Now they're running it back, and we've definitely seen much improvements from both women, especially from the Angela Hill side of things, who was very green coming off the Ultimate Fighter. You know, I believe she was only 2 or 3-0 at the time that she took on Tecia Torres, and it definitely showed in that fight that she just wasn't ready for the grappling, right? Tecia Torres had a tremendous amount of success with grounding that fight and just completely controlling Angela Hill. And Angela Hill even talked about it in her the press conference yesterday. She goes, I was super green at that time, right? I didn't know how to get off my back. I didn't know how to, nullify passing or staying in the guard or whatever the hell it is. So it's good that she's actually noticed that, and obviously has made improvements as we've seen over her last several fights. Close fucking fight here, right? We got minus 135 on Tecia Torres, plus 115 on Angela Hill, and it seems like one of those spots where you just want to flip a coin and just take the, whichever side, but you're getting solid plus money here on Angela Hill. Not to mention there's certain spots, including Coolbet, who obviously have an affiliation agreement with, they have Angela Hill by decision at plus 250, which I think is absolutely crazy, considering that both women's win conditions are probably the decision, right? So to have money line on plus 115 on Angela Hill and then to have the decision prop at plus 250 doesn't really make sense to me. There's still other spots that are hanging that number at plus 200. Again, I believe that this fight goes 15 minutes. I think we'll see more improvements from Angela Hill in terms of making this fight or leaving this fight in the vertical position, in the striking position. And with Tecia Torres, we've been seeing certain spots from her in certain performances where she's relying on her striking to go out there and get the victory rather than going out there and trying to grapple fuck chicks. But I'd be surprised if she doesn't go out there and try to engage in the grappling and try to overpower Angela Hill. I think she will struggle with that, though. I think once this fight gets back onto the feet, which I completely believe it will, I don't think that we'll see Angela Hill trapped on bottom like she was in the first fight. I think she'll get back to her feet and let that volume start to go. And I think that optic of her landing more strikes here should start to sway the judges. Again, Texas judges don't really know what's going on or what they're smoking or drinking that night, but it's definitely going to be in your favor if your fighter is the one landing more damage in this spot. And I think that's going to be coming from the Angela Hill side of things. No big read. Like I said, I'm not going lock that I deep on Angela Hill or anything, but I definitely want to take advantage of that plus 250 decision line because I think that's an egregious error on their end. But again, all the books are putting it at that line. So, I like Angela Hill here. I think she'll nullify the grappling of Tecia Torres, like I said, get her strikes off, and then go on to win a decision. I'm taking Angela Hill decision plus 200. I think that's a solid spot. Cody, you giving more credence here to Tecia Torres, or do you think that Angela Hill has made enough improvements to get the victory here?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a close fight, goes to decision, all that, yada, yada, yada. But I'm going to go the other side and go with Tecia Torres. I don't hate it. Plus 200 on Angela Hill by decision. We're both agreeing this thing's going to decision. Why not have Angela Hill? But yeah, I'm not the biggest Angela Hill fan. It's nothing against her. It's that her style usually ends up leading to, if it goes to the scorecards, it's just going to come down to what did the judges like on that night. I thought she won the Claudia Gadelha fight. She outstruck her and she happened to knock her down as well, but she loses a split. I thought she won the Michelle Waterson fight. Went 5 rounds. Thought she landed the better strikes. She thought she won both those fights. Judges disagreed. But this is Ashley Yoder fight the last time out. I mean, once again, that was a rematch that nobody asked for. Everybody thought it would go down pretty well the same way. Angela Hill would be able to stop the takedowns, land the better strikes. She did exactly that. But to me, it wasn't like all that impressive. And Yoder represents a very low level. Like, there's not much there. So Hill kind of fights to the level of raw opposition. Give her a solid girl like Claudia Michelle Waterson, she steps it up. Give her a low-level girl, she kind of fights to that level. She's 36 years old. I know that she's been working on her grappling. I know that she has the output, but she seems a little bit not the most physical girl at the weight class, a little bit undersized still at times, and primarily she relies on just the volume. The striking she's a great striker, but without the power, without the ability to finish your opponent, I mean, it's just going to be a lot of these 15-minute wars. Again, there's a lot that you can like about Angela Hill, but with Tecia Torres, man, I just think that she's still getting a lot better. She's only 31 years old, but this is a girl that's just in the gym all the time. You know, her significant other is a professional fighter. This is a UFC family. She's been training at places like the top gyms in Colorado or the American Top Team. She's always been training at a world-class level, and whereas it did seem like, we talked about this with Karolina Kowalkiewicz, it's like she went through the same 4-fight losing streak. She lost to Jessica Andrade, she lost to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she lost to Weili Zhang. By the way, she went the distance with all three of them, and then went the distance with Marina Rodriguez. It seemed like maybe she was a little bit burnt out. So burnt out that despite fighting 4 legendarily good fighters, she comes in as a plus 175 underdog against Brianna Van Buren. Plus 175 underdog. Because, yeah, mentally she's checked out. She looked awesome in that fight, man. Striking was on point. Physically, she's a specimen. And her takedowns were on point that fight. Now you go to the next one, Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes is not in her league. Sam Hughes is nowhere near her league. So what she needs to go do is go and outclass this girl tremendously. Now, Tecia Torres is not someone that finishes fights, right? She's a decision-type fighter. The majority of her professional fights, like 95% of them, have gone to decision. But she's so much better than Sam Hughes. You saw her in there. Whereas I honestly think Angela Hill, she would have diddle-daddled a little bit. She might have gotten the finish later around, but I thought Torres looked on point, man. Again, physically strong. That takedown was just so well-timed. Very, very, very good timing. You know, shot right through her, basically. The striking, she just mauled her, pillar to post for 5 minutes, causing basically Sam Hughes quit, right? The judge was like, I'll stop this fight. And everyone was like, cool, stop this fight. And they let it go. But it's like, Tecia looked strong. She looked motivated. And so what we've been seeing is, let's say Beneil Dariush versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. We've seen it before. They rematch. It's going to go down the same way. It does go down the same way. Hill versus Yoder. No one cared about that fight getting rematched. They fought already. It went down the exact same way the last time. Yes, these are all better versions of themselves, but the blueprint has already been written. Tecia has won this fight before with the exact same blueprint. I can strike with you. I can, slightly outland you, and I probably will land a slightly, the more eye-catching shots, but it's the ability to mix in that takedown that should secure her those close decisions. So, yeah, listen, man, close fight that goes to decision. I'm just going to go on the Torres side of things, which is plus 110.
I like it. Again, this fight is probably going 15 minutes, so just go the decision route if you're picking either side in this spot. All right, let's move on to the next fight, and this is where things really start to pick up on the main card, in my opinion. We got Vicente Luque going up against Michael Chiesa. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 115 for Luque, minus 105 for Chiesa. But Chiesa was just like Victoria Leonardo, plus 125 earlier in the week, and steady money has been coming on him to push it to a pretty much a pick 'em odds here. Very easy fight to break down, right? You got Chiesa who wants to go out there and get this grapple fucking tour on schedule again, just as he's been doing over his last 3 fights. And then for the Luque side, he wants to keep this fight vertical and try to get his striking going. Now, Luque beat JJ Blackout, obviously very well versed on the ground, but I'm just not impressed with what he shows off of his back, and I think that's where he's going to actually find some trouble finding any success against Chiesa if Chiesa is actually successful in getting this fight to the ground. I do believe there will be moments where Luque finds his way back to his feet and gets his striking going, but I think it will ultimately come back down to Michael Chiesa finding that takedown and dragging this fight to the ground. He is a pretty big and strong 170er, which is crazy to say, especially for somebody that used to make 155 or attempt to make 155. So I think the best decision Chiesa ever made was going up to 170 pounds, and it's pretty much working out for him, especially over his last 3 fights. And this has got to be the biggest fight of his career to truly, vault him into like the top 7, top 5 of this division, and get even bigger fights, man. He can easily fight a guy like Colby Covington or Gilbert Burns, especially with the win this weekend. I'm sure there's a built-in storyline already if he goes out there and beats Luque, if he goes on to fight Gilbert Burns after that. So that could definitely work out for him as well. I do like Chiesa here, though. I do think that he'll be successful as grappling, slowing down Luque, pushing him up against the cage. Even if he doesn't land a takedown early here, I think he's strong enough to kind of push him up against the cage and kind of nullify the damage that's going to be coming back his way. Luque, great striker. Don't get me wrong. I definitely do think he can go out there and put some damage on Chiesa. And Chiesa, not the greatest striker, right? He leaves a lot to be desired there in terms of his striking defense, even his technique on the feet. It seems more so to eventually it's like that buffering period for him to eventually go for a takedown, which I think is, more than likely going to be successful for him in this matchup here. I know we saw Luque go out there and stuff one takedown from Tyron Woodley last time around, and and that's probably the best wrestler he's fought up until this point. But again, that Woodley takedown was just so weird. It was just right off the bat. Starts with a big overhand, closes the distance, pushes Luque up against the cage, and then just really muscles everything, but is really not able to get in on the legs deep enough to get that takedown. I think we'll see Chiesa hide that takedown a little bit better than what we saw from Tyron Woodley that night. But I think there is some truth to the merit of Luque has not fought a legitimate guy that's going to go out there and try to grapple fuck him the way that Chiesa is, right? Just look over his last record or his last 2, 3, 4 years if you want to. Luque has primarily been fighting guys that are willing to go out there and exchange with them on the feet. Sure, they could shoot a takedown here and there, and they have shot a takedown here and there. I think Randy Brown landed a takedown or two on him as well. But I think that Chiesa is the best out of that batch to go out there and implement this type of game plan and be successful with it. So I like Chiesa here in terms of a specific price tag. Chiesa by decision plus 220. I think that's an amazing line. I think this fight goes all 15 minutes. I believe you do as well, Cody. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, though, in terms of how you think it's going to go down and whether Chiesa will be as successful with the grappling as I expect him to be.
Yeah, this is the tough part. The difference between watching a fight for entertainment purpose and watching it on a gambling perspective, right? Vicente Luque has never been in a bad fight. All of his fights are extremely entertaining. He's a fan favorite. He's a crowd pleaser. How could you not like watching Vicente Luque fight? Michael Chiesa is... Whoa, it is hard to watch sometimes, right? Yeah. It is just a bog. He will just grind you into oblivion. He's not trying to do any ground and pound. He's very rarely trying to submit you. He's just holding you down. And again, is it the most entertaining approach? No. And so as much as I'd like to see Luque go out and have an entertaining fight come Saturday, I'm going to pick Michael Chiesa, and for that, I need this to be a terrible fight from an entertainment perspective. Michael Chiesa's striking numbers are like, it's laughable, dude. He went 25 minutes with Neil Magny, landed 24 strikes, 4 takedowns, 24 strikes. It's less than a strike per minute over the course of 25. Him versus Rafael Dos Anjos, he landed 9. It went 15 minutes. He landed 9 significant strikes. No ground and pound. Again, he gets the takedowns, 6 of them against Dos Anjos. Against Diego Sanchez, it's like that little drill you do at the gym where you lie on top of the punching bag, right? Still, he only hit that punching bag 47 times over the course of 15 minutes. Like, come on, man. No output. Him versus Carlos Condit, it ended in the second. Fair. He had landed 10 strikes to that point. So, again, there's no ground and pound out of him. If he gets the rear naked choke, great. If he doesn't get the rear naked choke, it's just going to be him holding on to you. Neil Magny could have won that fight on the basis of Neil Magny was a much better striker. When you watch that fight, Neil Magny was going to win those striking exchanges. Only Chiesa just closes the distance, gets a hold of him, peels him to the ground. As far as it going on the ground, you are 100% right in your assessment. This guy's a big welterweight. My God, is he strong. Very strong. And I think that, again, the fact that he made 55, no idea. But at 170, he's got more energy. The weight cut's taking less out of him, and he's been able to put more mass on that frame. He's a big, tall guy. He's been able to fill out that frame, right? So there's things that you could like about Michael Chiesa, but it all depends on him just getting the takedown and grinding this thing to the ground. And I agree with your assessment that Vicente Luque has been matched to have crowd-pleasing fights. He's not ever fought a wrestler. Not really. I mean, he's fought... Michael Graves is a wrestler. Michael Graves took him down 7 times and won the fight. Okay, fair. Hader Hassan, brawler. Alvaro Herrera, brawler. Hector Urbina, no skill. Bilal Muhammad, generalist. Leon Edwards can grapple, he's a generalist, an advanced generalist. And Leon Edwards took him down 3 times and beat him. Nico Price, calculator brawler. Chaz Laprise, 55er, striker. Jalen Turner, striker. Brian Barberina, just a grinder, brawler. Derek Krantz, technically a wrestler, sure, but shouldn't have been in there in the first place. And Krantz did take him down, by the way. Mike Perry, brawler. Stephen Thompson, karate. Nico Price rematch. Randy Brown, striker. Tyron Woodley shot 2 bits. Nobody has really gone out there with the ability to just shoot takedowns, grind him up against the cage. And Chiesa doesn't care if you boo, right? He's just going to try to do the same thing. Get you to the ground, take the back. So I'm going to actually agree with you. What I do like is fight goes the distance minus 125. So if Chiesa wins this fight, yeah, we just talked about it, what he wants to do. He wants to secure takedowns, and he wants to just grind this thing down, kill time off the clock, and be the guy that's on top. If he wins, probably by decision. If Vicente Luque wins, Vicente Luque is an infinitely better striker than this guy. Way sharper, way better volume, way more punching power. That all being said, he probably doesn't stop him. Like, I got a feeling that Chiesa is durable enough. Chiesa's never been knocked out. He has been stopped, do a cut stoppage against Joe Lozon. And yeah, that's it. He got cut stoppage against Joe Lozon, and he's been submitted by Masvidal, Kevin Lee, and Anthony Pettis. And the Anthony Pettis one, the most shocking of which. But that was the last time he fought at 55. His body's shutting down midway through the fight, and he gets submitted. He's looked way better at 170 since jumping up there. So unless he gets caught in some weird Darce choke after getting clipped by something, I think Chiesa should just grind this thing down. It should go the distance. Chiesa by decision. Fight goes the distance. Going to agree with all those. Last thing I want to say is, it's not even a relevant point really, but we're all saying how much better Vicente Luque is a striker, and he's leaps and bounds a better striker. Michael Chiesa doesn't seem like he can grind that much, but there's no doubt about it. Vicente Luque tends to leave his chin up there. He tends to be a very hittable guy. Nico Price unloaded on him. Tyron Woodley, of all people, still was able to drop him. Mike Perry took him into a tooth or nail. Brian Barberena took him into a tooth or nail. He is super hittable, and Michael Chiesa has never been knocked down in the UFC, and he has scored one single knockdown in his entire UFC run. That knockdown was over George Masvidal, of all people. So like, if you don't respect just his punching power and you just think you're going to walk right through him, he will land something before shooting that takedown. And Vicente Luque is going to have to be smart because he'll fight with his hands low, anticipating the takedown. I can see Chiesa trying to mix it up. Strike, then shoot. So regardless, I think it goes the distance. I think Chiesa wins that decision. So fight goes the distance minus 120 and 125. And the Chiesa by decision, as you already mentioned, plus 240. Going to have a shot at that.
According to some people on Twitter, it seems like Chiesa had a pretty bad wake up. Made the weight, but again, the guy's a big dude. I expect him to look bad on the scales, but hopefully it doesn't translate too much over into his performance this weekend. All right, let's get to the co-main event here. We got Jose Aldo going up against Pedro Munoz, another fight that I'm very much excited for. We got minus 115 on Jose Aldo, minus 105 on Pedro Munoz. Now, Jose Aldo actually opened up at minus 150 and has slowly been bet down to that pick'em line. A lot of people loving what they're seeing from Pedro Munoz and think that he should be able to take this fight. But I'm actually on the opposite side here. I do think that Jose Aldo has enough left in the tank here to have a solid performance against Pedro Munoz. Now, Jose Aldo fight mount is definitely up there, but he's only, I believe, 2 days younger or older than Pedro Munoz. They're only separated by a couple of days in terms of their birthdays here, and they're both the same age. They're both 34 years old. Pedro Munoz, very hittable, which is a big concern here, especially against a guy like Jose Aldo, who still showed that he can be competitive at certain times. If I'm not mistaken, he stole a round from Petr Yan, which is absolutely impressive, especially considering that a lot of people thought that Aldo was absolutely shot. Then he goes out there and springs a win over Marlon Vera. It's 1-1 going into the third round. Then we go out there and see Jose Aldo pull off something we've never seen him do before. Backpack a motherfucker for 3 rounds, and he goes out there and does it successfully against Marlon Vera and gets that decision victory. So good for him to accept the fact that he's no longer the Jose Aldo of old, and now he needs to transform his game a little bit more so that he can find some success, especially at this point in his career. But Pedro Munoz, in my opinion, the guy's pretty much okay. Good jiu-jitsu, good guillotine, calf kicks, leg kicks. That's his MO pretty much. And then his wild winging hooks. Like, he doesn't really have any method to his madness with the strikes. And I think this narrative of him being this crazy puncher after that Cody Garbrandt fight is being completely overblown. This guy had 25 minutes to go out there and take out Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar, we know, is pretty much, you just blow on his chin and this guy's going to go to bed. But Pedro Munoz could not find the button that night, and he did land a good enough significant amount, a great significant strike count in that fight. A lot of people thought Pedro Munoz deserved to win that fight, but is what it is. Close fight. Always with Frankie Edgar when you're able to go a full 5 rounds, and he ended up coming up short on that fight. I think that this is a great fight for Jose Aldo as long as he remains conscious, and I'm not completely sold on the fact that he's chinny or washed up or just way past his prime. Yeah, he's past his prime to a certain extent, but I still believe he's making do with the skills that he still has. Again, I think Pedro Munoz is just way too hittable. Jose Aldo is going to be able to kind of let go on him here. I think he should be able to do enough work in those first 2 rounds to at least, eke out a decision. And I think he'll be serviceable enough in the third round here to stay conscious and actually make it to the judge's decision. So I do like Jose Aldo in this spot. I think we'll see some good work from him early in this fight, especially with the striking. And Jose Aldo by decision at plus 180. I don't mind that spot, but even him at that minus 115 line, I think isn't too bad either. How do you feel about this matchup between these two guys? And do you think that Aldo still has enough left in the tank to get it done?
No, I don't. I don't think Jose Aldo does. Listen, is he an elite level competitor? For sure, but I just like what Pedro brings to the table a lot more. Aldo's not the same guy he used to be. You know, I hear he made weight today and he looked really good. Obviously, I'll have to watch the weigh-ins once I'm done here, but he's shown an ability to make 135 pounds. That's not the problem. When have you seen him on make weight and not look good at 135? When have you not seen an Instagram post from him a week out of a fight at 135 and not look good? So we know he can make 35. But people think he won the Marlon Moraes fight. They're full of shit. He lost the Marlon Moraes fight. In the third round, all he did was move forward, not let his hands go, got outstruck, and it was a bad third round for him. The Peter Yan fight, he starts off good, like you're saying, won a round over Peter Yan. Ends up getting outstruck like 174 to 86. Tired, hurt, knocked out. But I'd give you a pass there. It's fucking Peter Yan. It's the Marlon Vera fight, my friend. The Marlon Vera fight to me is the most telling of all because he looked good in that first round. My God, boxing was on point, digging to the body. Turns out that Chito Vera is very durable, something that we all know. Chito Vera, by the way, almost universally always loses the first round. So that's not, that's not crazy to hear. Jose Aldo looked good. It's the second round. The second round is a pure striking battle. Jose Aldo's tired. His strikes don't have the same zip on them anymore. Marlon Vera's backing him up. All three judges score the second round for Marlon Vera. The majority of people at home score the second round for Marlon Vera. This is a 1-1 going into the third. And it was a striking match. He beat Jose Aldo in a straight-up striking match. And Aldo's tired. And then in the third round, you're impressed that he backpacked him? What's impressive about that? He backpacked him because he knew if I stand in front of this guy and trade with him, I'm going to lose. So what he did was saw an opportunity, he took the back, he put a body triangle in, and he held on for dear life for 4 minutes. He did not try to submit. He did not try to ground and pound. He did not try to advance position. He just fucking clung on to him to win the third and win the fight. Kudos. Now you're taking on Pedro Munhoz. Are you going to backpack Pedro Munhoz? No. You're not out grappling Pedro Munhoz. He's a far better grappler. He's slick. His scrambles are unbelievably good. Nobody's just going to hang on his back for 4 minutes. So we're taking off Aldo's option off the table. So now we got a striking battle. Fine, that's what Aldo wants. Aldo will come out in the first round and he will look good. In the second round, he will start to tire. In the third round, he will be tired. Pedro Munhoz doesn't go anywhere. He's got volume for days. You look back at his own resume and it's just, especially his last three fights, man. His last three fights, you go back to, say, the Aljamain Sterling fight, where it's like, oh, fuck, you're fighting the current world champion who's leaps and bounds faster than you. He landed 105 significant strikes. His next fight against Frankie Edgar, he landed 166 over 25 minutes and did get robbed of a decision. He should have won that fight. And then against Jimmy Rivera, again, Jimmy's a striker. Jimmy's a ballin' striker. He's a badass. You know what he did? He stood with them for 15 full minutes and shit kicked him 94 to 65 in the striking department. His cardio looks awesome. His grappling is awesome. And his striking, where he's not an elite level striker, his pace that he pushes is incredible. Now, Aldo's known as the leg kicker, but he doesn't actually even leg kick anymore. Pedro Munhoz is the leg kicker, my friend. His leg kicks are tremendous, and he'll just spam them over and over and over. And not only am I betting Pedro Munhoz straight up, I'm betting Pedro Munhoz after that first round, because I think Aldo will be competitive and maybe wins the first. Second and third, as long as the Texas judges don't blow it, it's going to be Pedro. He's going to win this decision. So straight up, Pedro Munhoz by decision is plus 220. The fight to go the distance, minus 190. Oddsmakers think it's going the distance. I do agree with that assessment. I'll take that minus 190, but the guy I think is Pedro, and I think it's going to decision, so I'm going to hit that Pedro by decision. I'm not going to discredit Aldo. I think he is durable enough to survive 3 rounds still. I don't think his cardio is so bad that he's going to turn into a punching bag. And yes, Pedro's not a big power puncher unless you're Cody Garbrandt and you just stick that baby right up in the air for him. But I think he's just going to have the volume, the work rate. He's going to be coming forward. The Texas judges are going to like it. And as long as 2 or 3 of those guys aren't big Jose Aldo fans, I think Pedro gets the win. So plus 220 on the decision. I like me that.
I'm looking forward to seeing how that second round plays out. That seems to be the one that should be the determining factor who actually wins this fight, right? So it should definitely come down to that. And I don't mind the shot on Pedro Munhoz going into the second round because he'll probably be down, like I said, or like you said, and you'll probably get some solid plus money on him there. I do see a couple people talking about, the fact that Jose Aldo is not leg kicking anymore. I've heard, certain different things, like he broke his leg against Ricardo Lamas, a couple different things. I believe it was actually after he had that motorcycle accident where he stopped kicking as much. I believe he suffered some sort of leg injuries over there, and since then he hasn't really been kicking. Did kick in the Petr Yan fight a little bit, found some success there, as that was obviously Petr Yan's kind of Achilles heel in a sense, especially in the Jimmy Rivera fight. He was having a lot of troubles with the leg kicks there. But yeah, I'd be surprised if he goes out there and out leg kicks Pedro Munoz, because Pedro Munoz is now the Jose Aldo of leg kicking inside the UFC. All right, that brings us to our main event. Again, another chance for me to remind you guys, make sure you guys hit that like, hit that subscribe, and then go check out Cody's YouTube channel as well, which is linked in the description below. But we are here to talk about the interim heavyweight title fight between Ciryl Gane and Derek Lewis. Francis Ngannou, according to Derek Lewis, is over there playing in the sand in Abu Dhabi. But you got to give Francis some leeway, right? The guy just won the title, had a good training camp, let him do his little championship tour, and then come back and fight whoever deserves to fight next. But I get the UFC side of things as well, considering that this pay-per-view is taking place in Houston. Derek Lewis was going to be the one that was supposed to fight Francis Ngannou. Supposed to happen this weekend, but they still want to keep Derek Lewis on the card. Should they have put an interim title on the line? Probably not, but again, we know the gold shiny belts definitely help sell pay-per-views. And the fact that Amanda Nunes is no longer on the card either, again, you don't have as much to really promote there. But Jose Aldo, Pedro Munoz in the co-main event, you could do a lot worse than that. And then obviously a banger of a heavyweight fight between Lewis and Gane should definitely deliver here. So pretty binary fight to break down, right? Gane is going to be winning 99% of this fight until Derek Lewis lands that bomb. That's pretty much about it. But I think where the differing opinions here are, what is the method of victory for Gane, right? That's where I think is going to be highly debated throughout the fight week. And I've seen on other podcasts, people talking one way, talking the other. The spot that I like, though, is Gane inside the distance, man. I think he's going to go out there and we'll see that killer that Gane used to be. Now, why I say that is that people seem to forget, like, Derek Lewis does not wear damage well, but he does a good job in terms of coming back and getting a knockout and making those comeback victories. But his lulls, he looks so bad in his lulls between those blitz attacks. And now you have probably the best fighter that he's fought over the last several years going up against him. Great striker, great movement from Ciryl Gane. Should be able to stay away from the big shots of Derek Lewis and then really start to take advantage of those lulls where Derek Lewis is kind of recharging and regaining his energy so that he can go out there and shoot another blitz attack at you. I think the main factor here is going to be the body kicks of Ciryl Gane. I think he's going to dig to the body of Derek Lewis over and over again. It's going to slow down Derek Lewis even more. Derek Lewis always slows down. We can always write that off. That's always going to happen. But I think now that you have a guy as disciplined and as dangerous as Ciryl Gane, we'll see Ciryl Gane open up a little bit more here against Derek Lewis. I don't think just because his last two fights went to a decision that he's now a decision fighter. Those two last fighters, Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Alexander Volkov, are way more dangerous than Derek Lewis over 25 minutes in terms of, in the fact that they don't have those lulls. Like Derek Lewis just has those lulls where he just kind of lets go and lets his opponent kind of go off on him. But those opponents are always ready or at the ready in terms of giving some offense back, maybe finding the chin, maybe not as big power punches as Derek Lewis. Don't get me wrong in that aspect, but I just mean that they're going to always be ready for the 25 minutes and have the defenses up ready to go and give you some offense. Whereas Derek Lewis is just going to wait for those spurts and kind of let go from that aspect. So I think once we see those lulls from Derek Lewis and we see that body work start to add up here, I think we'll see Gane eventually find that finish. The spot that I like the most and the spot that I probably hammered the heaviest this week, which is probably going to be my lock of the night, is the under 4.5 in this fight. I like it at -180. I think it covers that Derek Lewis finish, which, that's probably the only way he wins this fight. And I think it showcases that Gane should go out there and find the finish later in this fight. You can bet all the round props you want as well, round 3, round 4, round 5 for either guy here. You're getting some good value on that. But I do think it's going to be on the Gane side. Gane inside the distance at +105. I like that as well. I think that he's actually going to get it done. And we have to, as gamblers, handicappers, and predictors, we have to take the public perception that people have of certain fighters and find the angles where we get a better shot at the lines. And I feel like this is a perfect example where everybody all of a sudden thinks that Gane is a decision fighter. Now he's going up against a stylistic matchup, which is great for him to go out there and get a finish. So I do think you will find that this weekend. Like I said, Gane inside the distance +105 and the under 4.5 is where the most of my money is going to be going this weekend. Cody, do you share the same sentiments, or do you think that Gane is going to go out there and play it safe and go for a decision?
Yeah, he's definitely going to go out there and play it safe and potentially go for a decision and then finish Derek Lewis along the way. Like, Derek Lewis is not fighting 25 minutes. That in itself will lead to the finish. And what you're saying about the lulls in between, you're 100% right about that. See, when you're fighting Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he's got a ton of power as well, maybe just as much as Derek Lewis. The difference is that, like, when you want to bomb in on this guy, it's like he's still there. He's still staring at you. He's still moving. It's like, you know what? I don't want to overindulge just yet. So he takes his time. He just keeps jabbing, keeps kicking from the outside. With Lewis, it's like he's got his hands on his hips and he's half curled over. He's like, and it's just like, maybe I'll turn up the pace a bit. And then he lands that shot. Kudos to him. But the UFC's actually matched him extremely good over his last 3 or 4 fights. He just hasn't known how to exert himself. He got knocked out by Junior Dos Santos. Keep in mind, Dos Santos is no longer with the promotion. He was on a bad run. He loses that fight by knockout. But then Blagoy Ivanov, like, not really a high-level striker. He's more of a grinder, right? And he only landed 20 strikes. Then he takes on Ilir Latifi. The dude's a 205er who landed 5 strikes throughout the course of the fight, was just looking to hold him down. Alexei Olenek, fuck, man, he's like 44 years old. Like, what was he going to do? And then he gets Curtis Blades, and you can't discredit him there. I mean, he knocked Curtis Blades out. But he was getting beat up in the striking exchanges prior to catching him, and it was just another one of your typical Derek Lewis fights. Did he make a massive comeback versus Volkov? Yeah. And was getting worked the entire time. Remember that Travis Brown fight? I swear to God, he shit his pants at one point. He's like holding his stomach, and he's like, and the motherfucker still wins. He still wins. It's like the body language is just so bad. Mind you, it's in Texas. He's from Texas, sure, but it's not going 25. So the judges might as well just leave home early after the co-main because, either Derek Lewis is going to land that patented bomb over the top or Gane's just going to pick him apart until eventually he's hurting and he's tired and he swells up against the cage and he gets put away. I mean, Gane is seemingly not a finisher. He's gone 25 minutes his last 2 fights, 50 straight minutes, very lackadaisical sometimes, taking his time. He punched Alexander Volkov 135 significant times. That's a lot. You think Derek's just going to hang out for 25 minutes and get hit? Like, no, he's eventually going to get desperate and say, you know what? Time for me to lead the dance. And it'll either work for him or it won't. It's worked for him many times in the past. On this occasion, I don't think it's going to work for him. I think that you're going to have Gane just, control and dictate the action, basically own the space in between, way too fast, better kick game. That jab is just money, and it'll eventually yield to something. I think our boy Rockstar Z got a pretty good price on fight doesn't go the distance. I think that's a great play. You've got the under 4.5. I think that's a good move as well. I took the Gane by TKO, which was plus 150. He's got 25 minutes to get it, but he's not submitting Derek Lewis, in my opinion, although it certainly is. Fuck, you know what? I didn't even consider that. What's the submission prop on this?
Submission prop on Gane is currently sitting at Gane by submission is plus 655.
You know what? Now that I really think about it, just consider this at the very least. So Gane is actually more of a submission guy. When he first came to the UFC, he was looking to ground these guys and submit them. He submitted Rafael Pessoa with the first round arm triangle, and he submitted Dante Mays in the third with a heel hook, right? So since then, he's been fighting these badass strikers, right? Tanner Boser is not a badass, but a very good striker. Junior Dos Santos is a former champion, good striker. Rosenstruck versus Volkov. Perfect, all those. But we do know that he can wrestle. We do know that he's got decent grappling. Derek Lewis's biggest kryptonite is and always has been his takedown defense. Holy shit, does he have bad takedown defense. He gives up takedowns on the reg. But look at the last time he got submitted, which is Daniel Cormier. That rear naked choke was almost comical, how Cormier set it up. He was just like, all right, dude, I'm just going to take this now. Derek's like, all right, dude, I'm getting tired. Just go ahead and take it. He just gave it up. So if you had so much ring IQ, if you're Cyril Gane and you got ring IQ for days, would you want to stand at bay with this guy for 2, 3, 4 rounds until he gets tired? No. Wouldn't you shoot a few takedowns?
Yeah.
He tried to take Volkov down, but Volkov's takedown defense is pretty solid. In this case, it's like Lewis's takedown defense is not solid. He's got a very solid path. I don't know if I like that TKO anymore. Maybe I'll just take the inside the distance. Maybe
that's why I'm taking the inside the distance.
Yeah,
that's why I'm taking that, because there is the potential of the submission. Like, it's just, will he go for it? That's the main thing. Is he scared from what he saw in the last fight with Blades, where Blades just ran into that uppercut and just died, like somebody was saying in the comment section? Or will he set it up properly and find that takedown?
Yeah, see, my thing with Blades is that Blades knows if there was one issue with his own game, it's probably durability, right? He's been knocked out by Francis Ngannou, but it was quick. He'd been knocked out, I guess, in this one by Lewis. He's been stumbled a few times. Even in his 5th round against Volkov, he was tired and he was getting hit, but he's super hesitant when he's on his feet. His striking is all predicated on, like, hit you, shoot the takedown. So he's got a lot of nervous, anxious, like, energy when he's standing. And I think he was so desperate I need to get this fight down right now, he just shot himself right into the uppercut. Whereas Gane is so comfortable standing. I mean, he does come from a Muay Thai base. He's used to train with guys like Francis Ngannou, and he's fought in Jairzinho Rosenstruck. So he's already fought this exact same mold of heavy power punching you need to beware at all times. He's fought that level, and he's done exceptionally well. I think he will have success with the striking, with the jab, with those kicks to the thigh, with the little body kicks, mixing all that. But why wouldn't you take this fight to the ground, right? If it was an avenue and it was the path of least resistance, shit, why wouldn't you? Now, don't rush it like Blades.
Sorry, I feel like he could hide the takedowns a little bit better than what Curtis Blades was, because I think everybody and their mother knew that Curtis was eventually going to shoot the takedown, and Derek was just waiting for it. Whereas Gane, we don't know. He could just rely on the striking, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Lewis tends to shell up a little bit up against the cage. So if you can throw that jab, throw the jab, get him to put his hands up high and then shoot under, great. You know, I mean, can Lewis get back up? Yeah, he's got a weird get up game where he's just like, oh, I'm getting up now. And he gets up.
Let's get up.
Exactly. So yeah, okay, maybe you're going to have to take him down a few times, but every time he does that, it takes a lot of energy out of him. The more energy he takes, the more he starts to get desperate. And the more he starts to get desperate, the more you can start seeing these telegraphing these shots. Can it still knock you out? Of course. This is not only MMA, the greatest sport in the world, where puncher's chance is personified, but it's the black beast, Derek.
The
Lewis,
best
right?
puncher's chance possible.
Yeah.
Derek fucking Lewis.
Half of the tickets he's cashed are underdog tickets. So it's what he does. It's what he does. And if he gets me this time, then so be it. But I'm going to put Gane as a top ticket play this week. And at the very least, if everything else is to remain intact coming to the main event, then you have an option to hedge out. If you think that Lewis is that big of a power puncher, and for his odds, it would be an easy hedge out opportunity. But regardless of puncher's chance, the joke's already been made on Twitter, right? Like, he's faster, he's bigger, faster, stronger. He's he's got better cardio, better wrestling, better jiu-jitsu, and yet, Lewis probably still finds the chin and knocks him out at some point. Like, I get it, that's the joke, and beyond it being a joke, it's a pretty accurate joke, but I gotta go with Cyril Gane, I really do.
Yeah, for sure. And plus 400 for Lewis by KO. You can, that's a really good hedge opportunity if you definitely want to hedge. And Gane is your last spot on the tickets. All right, let's get to everybody's favorite segment of the show where we're going to go over our 3 best props. But I'm just going to remind you guys, Ultimate Weigh-In Show is actually going to be going down in less than half an hour. I do have a flight to catch later this evening, so I'm trying to get all my content done so I can finish packing as well. But my cast absolutely blew up on me last night. So I was supposed to have 2 very special guests. They were not able to make it. Luckily, my guy AJ from MMA Experts was able to answer the call. It'll be just me and him solo going at it. After I wrap up this show, I'm going to go over and watch the weigh-ins once again and just try to get an idea of what everybody looked like. And then I'll break down the fights one last time with my guy, AJ. Once again, that's going to go down at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So that's just less than half an hour from here. Me and Cody are about to wrap up the show. I'm going to go stretch my legs out, take my dog out for a piss, and then come back and sit back in this seat to break down these fights for you guys one last time. So make sure you guys join us at 12:30 p.m. Eastern right here on this channel. All right, let's get into our 3 best bets. I'll kick things off as always as soon as my graph. There we go. First and foremost, got inside the distance, plus 105. I really love that spot. I don't think he's a decision fighter all of a sudden. I believe he adjusts appropriately based on his level of competition, who he's fighting, and stylistically how he matches up with them. And I think stylistically he matches up great with Derek Lewis here to eventually find that finish within 25 minutes. And also, I really like the under 4.5 in that matchup just to cover up potential Derek Lewis Hail Mary knockout shot. Secondly, I like Casey Kenney via decision plus 170. I think he goes out there and outworks Song Yadong over 15 minutes, mixed in some grappling, showcases highly improved striking over his last couple fights, and hopefully avoid the big bombs of Song Yadong and then pull off a decision victory. Lastly, I'm going to go with Manel Kape, who apparently just missed weight by 3 pounds, which is not a great look. So hopefully you can come in there and use that extra poundage to knock the fuck out of Ode Osbourne, but definitely not a good look in his 3rd fight in the UFC, missing weight, and especially with his back against the wall. So you got to believe if he loses this weekend, he's probably going to get the pink slip because that weight miss definitely doesn't help. But I think his best way to win this fight is going to be inside the distance, plus 180. I think he can find the chin of Ode Osbourne, put him out, or at least later in this fight, if Ode Osbourne does have a bad gas tank, because again, we just haven't seen enough of it. Kape should be able to take advantage and then eventually put him away as well. So I got Kape inside the distance at plus 180. Cody, you're up, my man.
Yeah, weight misses usually go in the favor of the fighter that missed the weight.
Yeah.
So not the end of the world, but not what you want to see, especially a guy that's 0-2 in the UFC. I'm going to go Luque versus Chiesa. Fight goes the distance, -110 right off the hop. Again, I think it covers you both sides. Chiesa's going to want to turn this into a grind, slow it down, score takedowns, at the very least press him up against the cage, and just make this an unentertaining fight. I don't even know if that's a word. All the same, it would go 15 minutes. Fight goes the distance. Luque, meanwhile, he's a much better striker, but Chiesa's durable. If he can keep this fight standing and he can land some shots, I think he beats him, certainly wins the rounds, but I'm not sure he has the ability to knock him out within 15 minutes. So I think fight goes the distance, -110. It was close to even. Start off with that. Now let's get a little bit of plus money rolling here. We're going to go Fiziev by decision, +120. Again, I hear the arguments for Bobby Green all day. I just think that this thing's going the decision, and it's going to be Fiziev landing the better strikes, the better leg kicks. He's got more power, and ultimately Bobby Green clowns a little bit too much in there. He's fought in a lot of very close fights, a lot of fights he should have won, a lot of fights he outlanded his opponent nearly 2-1, and still lost because judges don't like his style and kind of how he composes himself in the ring. So this is just going to be a tough spot for him to overcome. I think he's at a skill deficiency right off the hop, and then on top of that, his style is not going to be good for the judges. So give me Fiziev by decision, +120. And then I got to take a little bit of a shot. My boy Pedro Munhoz by decision, +225. You know, I really like him this week. I've kind of outlined the reasons why I think he should be able to go out there. First round is going to be hell. It's going to be greasy. It's going to be a sweat. I can see myself losing that first round. It'll create a great live betting opportunity. But furthermore, I think the key rounds here are going to be 2 and 3. 2 will be close. Pedro's just got to make sure he wins it. Third round should be all Pedro Munhoz. In a 5-round fight, this would be a very easy pick to make. But in a 3-round fight, I will admit Jose Aldo still does have some of that GOAT status lingering around his name. You gotta put some respect on his name. He is Jose Aldo. But everyone's time eventually comes. And I think that Pedro Munhoz is just operating on a much higher level. So fun looking offering this weekend, and yeah, hopefully things go accordingly. I would love to hit a 3 for 3 before I pass it off for the fight night cards, but all the same, man, I definitely do love the show. I love, you know, the support that we've had for it. The community has been great, and yeah, I just really appreciate all the feedback.
Absolutely. As Cody was saying, his next appearance is actually going to be for UFC 266, which is at the end of September. And I'm actually going to be out in Vegas for that one. So you'll be seeing me streaming from a hotel room that night to be doing this propping you up show. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Just a reminder, if you guys missed the beginning of the show, the fight night shows are going to be fight night editions are going to be with me and John Stargarian, the host of the Club and Sub podcast, probably one of my best friends on MMA Twitter outside of Newsome, Z, and obviously Cody. So make sure you guys tune in for those shows. The first episode that me and him are going to do together is for the August 21st event, which is actually the next UFC event. We do have a lull next weekend, so no UFC next weekend. We do have PFL and Bellator. I believe Gegard Mousasi is going to be taking on John Salter in the main event, but yeah, still no UFC next weekend, so I won't be putting out much content because I'll also be out of province and taking a break and just chilling with my in-laws and stuff. So yeah, Cody, anything you want to say on the back end here, and then I'll wrap it up?
No, that's about it, man. Hopefully we right the ship from last week's abysmal effort as far as just the UFC card is a shit show. This one feels a lot better, so hopefully it's in the air for us this weekend. And yeah, as always, love talking fights with you, and hopefully we can have another positive one the next time out.
Hell yeah. No long bombs for me this time around with crazy round 3 props. I'll definitely be taking
there was a few round 3 props that you did like, though,
yeah,
right?
Definitely going to be sprinkling them. I'm definitely looking at the Carolina one, the Victoria Leonardo one, Dos Santos as well, another one that I'm going to be looking at. And then obviously Gane. I'm going to be taking Gane round 3, round 4, round 5. I do think that those are some solid spots as well. So on behalf of me and Cody, appreciate all the love, support. We got up to about 200 live viewers at one point here. People love this 10 a.m. start time. Not entirely sure when it's going to be for the next pay-per-view, but we'll definitely let you know, guys know. But in terms of the fight nights, it's going to be Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Me and John are going to be doing the Propping You Up show for you guys. All right. Good luck on your bets this weekend. I'll see you guys in about 20 minutes when I go stretch out and come back with my guy, AJ, MMA expert, to break down the fights for you guys one last time now that we got the weigh-ins over with. So make sure you guys stick on into this channel and hop on over to that stream. All right, Cody, appreciate you joining me. I'll see you next month. And viewers, appreciate you guys checking us out. And good luck on your bets this weekend. Peace out.